This is the Great One Piece Readthrough, Episode 12, covering Volumes 56 through 61. My name is Zach.
My name is Ed.
And on today's show, we have a very special guest from Crunchyroll. We have Miles Thomas joining us again. Hey, Miles.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
It's going good. How's everything been over there?
Things are fantastic over here at Crunchyroll. Everyone's left me alone in the office, so I've had a nice, calm day.
How's Shirobako doing?
Shirobako does better whenever I tweet about it, so please watch Shirobako on Crunchyroll.com.
Yeah, no, I've watched the first few episodes. It's a great show. I need to sit down and binge, I think is the thing.
I'm not even the brand manager for that show. It's crazy.
Well, why don't you tell, for people who forgot, Miles, what do you do at Crunchyroll?
Sure. Actually, my role's kind of changed since the last time that we talked. So
that wasn't very long ago.
No, it wasn't. So this has been a pretty recent development. I'm now doing data analytics as my primary role at Crunchyroll. They still haven't even given me a job title, but I do like industry analysis, market competitive analysis, stuff like that. And because we operate in something like 185 countries, and so learning all these different markets, and knowing about all the shows and what anime fans are like in all these different places, that's now my day job. And now the conventions, which were previously my day job, are my night job. So they're what I do. I still work at conventions, but it's not, organizing them is not my primary role here anymore, which is cool because now I enjoy conventions just a little bit more, which I'm okay with.
That's always nice. Yeah, I could definitely imagine that being a relief with the amount of, I know you've just probably been at like 10 conventions in the past couple months too.
We're coming up to 17 or 18 this year, yeah.
Jeez. Well, Miles, I know you're excited about talking about this too. We're going to get into probably one of the most exciting arcs in One Piece thus far. We're going to start with Marineford here. Now, yeah, we'll go through the logistics of how we're doing this a little bit later. We're going to split this into two parts. We're going to talk about Marineford first, then we're going to talk about the flashback that happens afterwards. So, Ed, why don't we start out smack in the middle of Volume 56 first, with Chapter 549, somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, that's the one.
Ed, you want to start us off?
Sure, we got Shiryu and Blackbeard having their little encounter down in Impel Down. This is really, really ominous. Like, I mean, it's lucky Blackbeard is kind of weirdly lucky, but just seeing him, like, he's got plans, man, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, just kind of going through the generals of this part of the saga. I don't know what you want to call it. I love how interconnected everything is, because especially when we get to the war here, the stuff that happened in Impel Down is very important. The stuff that happened in Amazon Lily comes back, and Shabadi, the archipelago that shall not be named, also comes into this a lot. And so this Impel Down stuff with Blackbeard is such great setup. More importantly, what about the setup with Buggy? I mean,
yeah, Buggy is a leader of men. He's leading them with a smile. That's what he's doing.
He's leading them with lies and more lies.
I love Buggy throughout this whole thing. He's just sort of he's like the fool jester of the war.
Yeah.
And when I first read this, every page I'm like, oh, Oda can't be taking him this seriously as a character. You know, he's going to eventually, blow up in everyone's face. And he kind of does, but not in the way I expected. I expected him to get caught a lot earlier.
And
in a much bigger way.
And they reveal all of Buggy's, like, past to everyone. And I love the reactions from everyone, like, what? This guy? The weak guy over there?
Yeah. Crocodile and Jinbei have an interesting interaction over here. Well, he's talking about like how Jinbei can talk to fish, and he basically calls fishermen barbaric. And Jinbei's like, "Yeah, we're barbaric. What of it?"
And also, we get a little bit of like Jinbei, who we know from Arlong way back when we were talking. I think that's when you were last on, Miles, right?
That's right. Yeah, tying it back up with the fishermen.
And it's when they mentioned Jinbei is the one who released Arlong onto the East Blue. And so he kind of, I like that little thought process Jinbei's having with Luffy, because as we learn, Jinbei is definitely Luffy's closest ally in this saga. So it's interesting to remember that there was some sordid history there. And there's not much else beyond a lot of buggy stuff and Ace being led up to Marineford. There.
Well, there's also the phone call from like Navy headquarters that they get on the ship phone,
And
which
Luffy just picks it up.
yeah,
I'm Luffy, king of the pirates. How could I help you?
pretty much. You remember how long the phone rang for in the anime?
Around 10 minutes, I think.
It seemed that way.
You know, we didn't really mention opening 12, and we're about to come to opening.
Hey, great! I forgot about it. Let's not talk about it.
But opening 13 is an opening I really like, and I watched it after reading through all this, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I really like this opening a lot. Because I
This
think
one and the next one.
And 14.
Was 13 the one done by the band who was really like they formed the band to do a One Piece opening? Was that one?
I don't
They were
remember.
a very new band. They were a very new band.
They were
Yeah, I
very
think it was
into
that
One
one.
Piece, yeah. What were they called? I can't remember.
By that point, the anime's been out for 10 years. People were kids reading the manga can now make a band and do the opening. I mean, like, how cool is that?
It is. No, they were really huge One Piece fans. I remember, I think we talked about this years ago. They went to Jump Festa and performed there, I think, this song as commemorative, of this arc. The next one's also one of my favorites. You're right, Ed, and we'll talk about that when we get to the flashback stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they reveal all this stuff about Buggy. Like Buggy, actually, he's had a very sort of like influenced like career as a pirate. He was on Roger's ship.
Can we make this our only Buggy discussion because he's in the background for this? Unless you want to talk more about Buggy.
Not really. I mean, he sort of just pops in for comic relief.
Because in the anime, he has like 10 episodes apparently devoted to him. I'm exaggerating slightly, but 10 episodes worth of material. Why don't we go into chapter 550 now? I'm sorry, we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking a lot about like what we did in 2009 and 2010 when we were recapping this.
I tried to listen to one of the episodes.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean I didn't get far into it. You want to know who was on the manga recap that week?
Who?
It was you, me, Steve, Al, and Jason.
Okay, I see. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if I could listen to anything like from before season 2 of the podcast.
Well, Miles, you said you listened to us like during this time, right?
Oh no, this is when I was like a One Piece diehard. To prepare for this, I actually read some of my old Arlong Park forum comments on the weekly manga threads. It was really
What was your handle?
Oh no, that's not happening. That is not happening. But it was cool to be able to look back at that and kind of get a big perspective on what I did. And almost all of my comments seem to be related to why isn't Garp playing a bigger role in this? Oh my gosh, we actually get to see all the admirals together. This is so cool. It was just fanboyism, and that's okay.
That's fine.
But when I was looking back at the chapters, especially chapter 550 struck me. Every single image of Ace I remembered perfectly. Like those images are burned in my head. Oda did such a good job just making a very cinematic display of Ace, and the spears in front of him or just him on his knees, Sengoku standing over him. The imagery in this chapter in particular is just incredible.
Yeah, I'm like afraid that this episode's going to last 8 hours. I don't know. We just started. Because, God, I could talk about this arc forever. I love this arc so much, and it's just such a conglomeration of things. And
it's also, when you think about, like, Miles, like, I had a lot of the same comments, I think, like, back when it was happening. But looking back on it now, what we were talking about didn't really matter in the later story. So it's interesting, what do we care about now that doesn't... It's like... We're following like a process story here. We're not getting the plot when we go through it week to week sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
When you only have like 20 pages to look at a week, you do overanalyze those pages, but at the same time, it's really hard to contextualize them in the course of the whole arc. And that could not be any more true than in this arc, where there's so many characters and so much detail.
Yeah, and the benefit of 6 years of hindsight.
Chapter 550, we originally entitled "You Are Not the Father." I want to mention some good episode titles when we get to them. I was
watching a lot of Maury at the time.
We get this is just going to be the double page gushing podcast. I apologize. You get the double page of Marineford, then you get the double page of all the warlords, which to this day they are huge. Like Moria and Kuma are just so freaking huge.
And John
then
Giant's
that one
there
guy,
too.
and John Giant's there, and then the three admirals, as you mentioned, which I agree with. 2009 Miles, so cool to see. And
I think they even made figures of them in the chairs like that too.
Why haven't I bought that? That's
There was Admiral
No, I've
Light,
definitely
Admiral Dark,
seen
and
those.
Admiral Striped.
I should have
So
been
you can tell
calling
them apart.
that. You can tell them apart because they have distinctive faces that look like real life Japanese actors.
You know what they don't have though? Different hats. We were
Thank
promised
you.
different hats.
Well,
okay.
I mean, if you...
Miles, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Anyway, yeah, so the big reveal here, I think, is Ace's past and Portgas de Rouge and the 20 months of pregnancy, which is scary to think about, and that he is the son of Gold Roger. Do you remember your original thoughts?
Honestly, I don't. Like, I was like, what the hell? I guess.
I mean, I guess we recorded our original thoughts. Miles, do you
Yeah.
remember what you originally thought when you got
So-
that reveal?
At that moment, I'm like, are you sure that Ace and Ace is their brothers? That was really weird to me that Luffy and Ace were brothers and they were both sons. It felt too convenient at that point.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
of course, as we're going to get to a little later on in the arc, it's not quite that convenient. And I thought it was just, I was stunned for quite a few chapters, so it must have been quite a few months that I couldn't quite process the story.
Yeah, and I mean, you get a lot of reaction shots indicating that as well. And Garp's
And
relationship with Roger is also really interesting.
It's also interesting to look at Garp's relationship with Tsuru, because Tsuru's trying to be all kind of Garp about the reveal, and he's like, oh, you women sure are kind. Like, what the fuck, Garp?
Garp's an old...
Yeah.
He's an old guy. There's nothing else to really say about that.
I mean, it makes sense, but...
I have to say, I mean, as we go through this, marathoning it, so much nicer than going week to week for this arc.
Well, this is also the era of 16 and 15-page chapters.
Yeah, they're really short. They're all 2-page spreads, so you can read through these quick.
Yes.
But they're great.
Especially like the first half of Volume 57.
Meanwhile, Luffy, while everyone's going crazy about all that, Luffy and company realize that the gates are open, and also going through the gates are a pirate fleet of just crazy people that I don't know who their names to this day, except for Squirto.
They have hats, though.
I remember
We
the
have the
DeKalb
Sword
brothers.
hats here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Ed, go. Sorry.
Yeah, I always remember the DeKalb brothers because they kind of look like cats.
I don't know how you remember the DeKalb brothers. I obviously remembered Thunderlord McGuy.
Yes, greatest mustache.
That is probably the greatest mustache. No,
I love the guy at the beginning of this chapter. He's like, oh, what a scoop.
and this is not a spoiler at all, but I think I've seen that line in future chapters, or it was extra read all about it, I think is actually what I'm thinking of. So you see all those guys, and then Whitebeard comes out of, not nowhere, but out of the ground.
The water.
Out of the, what did I say?
The ground.
Comes up from underground.
The liquid ground.
Yeah, he comes from underwater in one of the coolest entrances, and I love that ship so much.
The Moby Dick.
Yeah.
Actually, and only the Moby Dick is it's the white one. The white whale.
It's the white whale. Yeah, the rest of them are blue.
Just kind of copies, yeah.
Yeah, well, they're regular whales.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at the relationship between Garp and Roger in this, even though they were like such hated rivals, but they respected each other so much that he would protect his child for him.
Do you remember, Miles, your first thoughts on Whitebeard here in the war?
Oh, it's when you realize that this was going to be the definitive moment of the first half of One Piece. I mean, and also all the Goldie Roger stuff. Every time you saw him, even just for a single frame, like that was blowing my mind. We had never seen pirates this powerful, and they did a really good job of making everything so far seem small compared to this.
Yeah, this is really a conglomeration of everything. And I mean, we've been talking about whatever the final war is going to look like a lot. I guess it's just this times 100, and it's hard to imagine reading through this. I'm like, this gets really chaotic really quick, because Volume 57 is right after Whitebeard arrives, and he just does his earthquake power on the second page of that volume. I mean, it happens immediately. That war starts immediately. And we also get this great little Ace flashback, which is somewhat easy to forget and you know, after everything happens here. But do you guys have thoughts on that flashback? Miles, I'll start with you.
Not particularly, actually. I just thought it was kind of nice. And of course, in hindsight, knowing how the arc ends, maybe I should have been a little more careful when reading it that first time.
Ed?
It's interesting to, because we see later how Ace asked Makino to help him, talk to Shanks, to how to talk to Shanks when he meets him. And you see him meeting him here. And it's interesting that, punk-ass Ace kid becomes, this respectful adult guy later on. But you see the transformation throughout the little flashbacks they have here.
How did he say how was he taught to say thank you as a kid? No, I don't remember the fake thing that he said. Anyway, I like this little flashback, and it's kind of crazy. I was thinking about it throughout, how Ace really wanted to kill Whitebeard and try to stab him in his sleep and stab him in his not sleep with an axe.
Yeah. And he fought Jinbei for 6 days, or 5 days.
Yeah, both of those are really interesting little facts, and kind of just his status as an independent captain. It's just kind of crazy to think about.
Although you never see when he got his devil fruit, because he didn't have it when he took off.
Yeah, I think who knows? It's probably a story to that we'll never find out.
And then at the end of it, we have Blackbeard being very humble. I ain't got no ambition, I can't believe that.
Yeah, he's we got the ages for the warlords. He's what, 40-ish? 38?
Blackbeard?
Yeah.
I think he's 40-ish. We'll find out when we get to that. I think he's one of the older ones.
Yeah. Whitebeard tried to prevent Ace from going after Blackbeard, but Ace was, he was wild and ran off after him.
But Whitebeard takes the blame anyway. Anyway, the war really goes crazy, and these tsunamis from either side, I remember just that spread, are what really begin the war there. And damn, it just gets crazy immediately.
It really does.
And I love how do you solve two tsunamis coming at you, Ed?
Well, if you're Aokiji, you freeze them.
It's probably the way to go. I'm sorry. That wasn't immediately obvious to me.
There's so many people with crazy powers here that you can never know what happens next.
Which has the added benefit of letting people run on the water.
Yeah, it kind of turns everything into a land fight, I guess. Yeah. And you got the guy with the chain chomp.
Dreadlock chain chomp.
Dreadlock chain chomp. You got Vista with his crazy mustache, and the guy who looks like Apu but isn't Apu. Then you got the Vice Admirals, including Strawberry guys.
Yeah.
And all the rest.
Here on Gilligan's Isle. We get Vice Admiral Dalmatian.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Who's your favorite? Oh, you were about to say.
No, it's not actually Dalmatian. Although my MVP as far as underrated Vice Admirals is Doberman, because Doberman's a son of a bitch. He is Akainu's little bitch boy. He is the parrot of Akainu's all of his beliefs. Especially at the end of the war, he's a real asshole. I hate him.
Which one is Doberman?
He's got all the scars in his face. He's one of the 5 Vice Admirals of the Buster Call.
Okay.
Yeah. He's the one who cries. I think.
No, he's the one who tells the tale of Rob Lucci.
No, but in a certain movie, he's the one who cries.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, who is your favorite Whitebeard pirate?
Oh man.
Oh, Miles, do you have a favorite Vice Admiral first? I should have.
I have a favorite Whitebeard pirate.
Oh, go for it.
That's Marco. This is a good arc for Marco. I don't know. He just
We really hated on him back in the
did.
day.
We still give him We still give him Butter's voice.
I remember the entire community kind of being like, "Who is this guy?" But I don't know. I always thought he was one of the most fun characters to watch in this entire arc, and he was brand new. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I was pretty pleased to just find another character that was so different from the rest of One Piece. He kind of feels like he belongs in a different anime.
I think week by week he was a little more frustrating because he
wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, wouldn't do very much. I think overall, it's I don't get that feeling at all.
Well, he doesn't accomplish much in the war, but I mean, no particular character does.
Well, he's supposed to protect Luffy, and then he's also supposed to be like protecting. Whitebeard dies, and then Luffy is.
Yeah, Whitebeard gets to. Yeah, he kind of drops the ball a lot. I think that's why.
And I think part of the really association with him is that he gets the Seastone handcuffs later on, and those are probably
that's not his fault, to be fair.
No, but those are like my most hated trope in like One Piece.
Yeah, it's like, oops, you got some handcuffs. So, Ed, who's your favorite Whitebeard pirate?
Oh, Vista.
Vista, okay.
Yeah, he fights.
You just like the mustache?
No, it's the sword and his like relationship with Mihawk.
This is a tough. I don't know who my. I mean, Vista's cool. You like anyone with a sword, Ed. I've come to that conclusion.
It's true. I mean, because everyone with a sword in this story is tied into my favorite character.
I do really like Jozu, just because I'm like he plays some interesting roles. Maybe we'll talk about a little later, but specifically when he comes up against Mihawk. Presents an interesting moment, and he gets cut in half, but I don't think he stays cut in half. So I'm that power is very curious to me. I want to see more about that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I guess we kind of covered a lot there actually, because we talked about the three people who kind of come to play. We get all the giants who also get kind of. I didn't realize how strong Jozu was. Now I'm liking him more and more.
It's interesting here, like, we get an interesting little interaction between Yamakaji and also being sexist to Suru. He's like, oh, stay back, Suru. He's like, shut up, little boy. She basically says. Like, everyone's giving her shit today.
Suru does not take shit, though. And we also get the premiere of the Magma Fist.
Before that, we actually get an interesting interaction between Mihawk and Doflamingo. And he's like, are you actually going to fight? But Mihawk is the kind of guy who wants to test his strength against Whitebeard, so he shoots like his giant slash at him.
Yeah, we don't really. This is the first time we probably have seen Mihawk trying ever. I guess when he. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say it because who knows if he's at his like full ability at any point, but he's definitely formidable. And what did you guys think of Akainu when we first got introduced to him for real here?
I mean, Kizaru is still way more fun to watch. And so just compared to him and Aokiji, he seems like the least of the three. Obviously, throughout this arc, he would certainly earn his place. But I don't know. He just seemed like a pretty boring character with a pretty standard ability.
I don't know. I like his ideology makes him a lot more interesting going on through the war. But at this point, I mean, he didn't seem terribly interesting, although I really, really found his power really cool to watch. Yeah,
Magma is a scary thing in general and something I would not want to be near in real life. So I think that's kind of how I could judge an ability. Like, for Gecko Mori, it's not quite as, apparent why it's scary, because the shadow thing is kind of more, fictional in a way. And so we also get the famed introduction of Little Oars Jr.
Yeah, he's a big target.
Anything you guys?
Oh, and before that, it's important that Jozu suplexes that whole iceberg there.
Oh yeah, I briefly mentioned that, but yeah, is there anything?
It's just very convenient.
Jozu can suplex whatever he needs to suplex, Ed. Yeah, so what did you guys think of Little Oars Jr.? Because he makes this very quick and big entrance and exit here very quickly.
Honestly, when I came back to this, I thought he was for 20, 30 chapters. I thought it was a big part of the arc because I remembered it so well. So I guess that says something about the impact.
Well,
I
what's
thought the
interesting is
flashback was more than like 3 panels too.
he proves essential later on when he blocks the blockade, which is essentially the only reason the war could have even continued past that point. So it's also really, he gets taken down brutally again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And
But he's just too headstrong to not to stop.
he's also kind of, I use this word oddly, but he's also kind of this cute character who's like kind of innocent in his own way.
He's like Forrest Gump.
I don't know if I go
There
that
you go.
far. There's nothing to show necessarily that he's like got any sort of mental issues. He's just someone who I think is very innocent about the world.
But it also proves. I mean, this also proves that the Ors race still exists.
Someone had been mentioning that the Ors race is just a race of giant, a type of giant. But yeah, it is.
Well, aren't they
either
They're
way.
so much
kind of
bigger than
related?
giant.
Yeah, maybe. I have no idea.
They're so much bigger than giants, though.
Yeah, they're, what are they, like 50 times or 5 times or just
No,
I'm not
there's
sure
2
how
or
much.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
still huge.
2 times a giant is big though.
Yes.
Not
that's-
as big as Ords.
Yeah.
Ors.
That's why he's Little Ors
however
Jr.
you say it.
He's tiny little Ors Jr.
Ace made him a hat out of straw. Which he learned from the people of Wano.
Also interesting to note.
Yeah.
Whenever we see that. So Doflamingo gets a bat at him, then Moria gets a bat at him. That's actually the first time we kind of see Doflamingo's power like that too.
Yeah, that's true.
And I like how Gecko Moria's attack, I think, is actually a gecko going. It's a lizard going through him, but it actually goes closer to his name than anything we've seen. And then doesn't he get struck one more time? Maybe that's later. And in
Kuma
response,
blasts him.
I love Whitebeard just crushing one of the giants with ease. I forget. Lons. There, it says right there. The
Yeah,
Vice
Vice
Admiral.
Admiral.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and Hancock gets involved here, too. She's taking out Marines and pirates indiscriminately.
Yeah. She
She agreed to fight Whitebeard, and, you'll forgive me because I'm beautiful.
I love Hancock's role here, back and forth. She doesn't really know what she's doing, but she just knows she's protecting Luffy.
She's ensorcelled.
Just one particularly brutal scene I want to mention, and it's very short, and it kind of happens in the middle of all of this. So Akainu's just walking around the town for some reason, and he notices someone was trying to run away, and so he kills him. For as far as we know, off screen, which I thought was this like brutal. Ed, I think you were talking about his philosophy.
Yeah, I think there was one of the maybe it was Onigumo who did that during the Buster Call. He shot a deserter.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, him and Onigumo and Doberman are like the two from the Buster Call who are like they have that absolute justice ideology.
I also like that we finally get to see Suru's power.
And she can wash people. I don't know. It seems kind of weak, but like she's taking people out, so I don't know.
But Ed, the biggest character so far comes in, Whitey Bay the Ice Witch.
She has an awesome design. I like that. I don't care.
What does she do though? Do we see her do anything? I don't remember.
She has an icebreaker. She breaks through the ice. It's important.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's important.
Anyway, so there's also some sort of plant going on in the background that we don't quite see for a while. And Ace and Garp also have a conversation.
Well, I mean, you were talking about that scene about the deserter. Kobe and Helmeppo see that because they were thinking about deserting too.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Running away, and but we get
We're skipping all over the place because there's just so much going on. I'm sorry.
No, but
yeah,
I think you've like, and we also skipped over Jason's like favorite scene from the manga of all time.
the Doflamingo speech.
Doflamingo speech, yeah. You know, because whichever side of justice, it's whichever side that wins. It's very morally, it's a moral relativism from Doflamingo that I appreciate. I mean, as a villain, you know what I mean.
I understand. Well, I mean,
that was one of the best scenes of this early part. It really,
yeah, I agree.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Kids who've never known war and kids who've never known peace have completely different ideas of right and wrong. The people at the top decide what's good and evil.
Doflamingo's right. This is true. whatever country wins in a war gets to write the history books about that war.
Makes you think about the war between the world government and the
Ancient Kingdom,
Yeah.
from 900 some years ago. No, it's true, and it's very applicable in real life situations. I think that is true because, I mean, we grow up in fortunate circumstances, so what's right and wrong to us is different than what's going to be right and wrong to someone in unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, in this whole arc, it's not like the Marines even seem abjectly evil as a whole, just individual Marines do. And I
Right.
think that, I mean, Garp's a great example of that, where Garp never seems like an evil or a bad character. He just has a different sense of justice than our heroes.
Yeah, and I mean, Aokiji is a great example. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little more later. And even Sengoku has a very different sort of ideal of justice.
And a different sense of hat style.
Yeah.
I like that hat style, though.
But it's at this point in the volume where you realize that we haven't seen somebody for this entire volume.
Who could it be, Ed?
Well, he's falling from the sky.
Some Jozu, because he's diamond, right? So he's falling from the sky. Okay.
That's
That's
You
Lucy.
wanna try again?
Lucy is in the sky with diamonds. So Luffy and okay, this joke is terrible, and I'm running it into the ground. So maybe it's Luffy.
yes.
Okay. No, it's great to see this entrance. I don't know. This is a ridiculous entrance, even for them, and you get an explanation for why it happened as well.
Yeah, they got frozen on top of one of the tsunamis.
Well, it's kind of funny to have Whitebeard come from beneath the sea, and then Luffy and come from the sky. They're being attacked from all directions. Good fun.
That was totally the plan. Totally the plan.
It's symbolic somehow. Yeah.
What was great is I completely forgot how this happened. I thought like they got over the gates of justice and flew over it before I read this again, and I'm like, oh, no. I guess this makes more sense.
Yeah. Buggy made the gates of justice open with his heaven powers.
And I just love the entrance, the I'm here for you double page. We're going to be, again, talking about double pages a lot. And I forget how cool it is to have these characters all in one place, because we probably will never see them all in one place like this again. Buggy, Crocodile, Eva, and Jinbei. Yeah.
And Jinbei has to save all the people who fell in the water, all the devil fruit users.
Right. Because, I mean, who else is going to do it? And you get the reaction shots from everyone. And what's the first thing that Crocodile does?
Tries to kill Whitebeard.
I mean, obviously. No, I love the fact that Luffy steps in there and kind of could easily deal with Crocodile like that.
I think Moria has the best reaction shot of all of this.
Okay, well, Moria has that same reaction shot. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a different reaction shot. I was thinking of another reaction shot.
No.
No, I love the Crocodile's role in this arc, and I kind of forgot about it, because we just read Alabasta a couple weeks ago, Ed, and he's...
It was a couple months ago, Zach.
Semantics. And I forgot how, I didn't forget, I should say, how evil Crocodile was during that arc. Brutally evil. And now he's just, and later on, he kind of plays the role of a good guy in this arc.
Well, I think
Kind of.
That was the crocodile in Alabasta was a crocodile who was like beaten down from the New World and complacent and like trying to like basically just entrench himself and take over this country. But now he has we see him get his ambition back throughout this arc. Actually.
I would say the opposite. He wasn't at his pinnacle, but he was moving up the rank. He was doing good work.
I don't know.
According to himself.
No, but Crocodile's dream is to be king of the pirates. He wasn't going to be king of the pirates by being the king of Alabasta. He was exchanging his dream for a lesser dream.
Well, he was trying to just defeat the world government by being king of Alabasta and making his own kingdom. I don't know. It was whatever.
Right, but that's not his real dream.
We're getting into something completely different.
We're psychologizing Crocodile, and I kind of like it.
Psychologizing a word?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you look at this, and I mean, not just the Shibukai, but there are a lot of characters who are fighting in this war who aren't really on one side or the other. They're just mostly fighting in a single direction. And Crocodile's probably the best example of that.
No, that's very true. There's a lot of gray in this arc. I also like the Straw Hat is really a big theme as to people recognizing Luffy, not just with Rayleigh in the last Sabani, but yeah.
And Whitebeard directly remembers asking Shanks what happened to his arm, so yeah, he gave it up for the new era.
So Whitebeard puts 2 and 2 together, and he figures that the hat is from Shanks, and that he's Ace's brother. And I love the picture. Look, my little brother has a wanted poster. And anyway, we get that other spread where Luffy and Whitebeard are basically standing on the same stage.
Everyone's shocked by this, and Kizaru's like, "Shall we kill them all?"
And so yeah, let's move on to explosions, more explosions, running and explosions. I think this is just where things go nuts. I don't know what you guys. Just say things that you do really think are interesting during this part, I guess. If there's anything in particular that strikes you.
Interactions between Eva and Kuma, and even Ivankov refuses to believe that Kuma would give himself over.
And it still doesn't completely make sense. I don't really understand his motivation there. Miles, are there anything in this first part of the fight that you particularly love?
Well, I was looking at my notes from, like I said, 2009, 2010, and one thing I really liked was Moria and Junbei fighting each other. Again, it's just kind of novel to see. It felt like a crossover manga because every single arc had been pretty separate up until this point, and seeing them all come together was super neat. And then the other thing I just liked is everything Ivankov does. Like, he pulls Inazuma out of his hair. Inazuma uses his fruit to cut up the ground and make a bridge. Like, there's so many fun little visual gags that happen on almost every page.
Yeah,
so that's what I liked most about this part.
Ed?
Luffy declaring that even if he dies, he's going to try and save Ace. Like, Ace is trying to send him away basically for his own good, and Luffy's just having none of it. I love that resolve.
And Ace, on the other hand, saying, "Look, I'm not going to fight anymore. I accept my fate." So everyone's willing to die, which Whitebeard says a lot as well. And
Jinbei says it a lot too.
Jinbei too, yeah. I'm just looking at that Jinbei Moria page, and that was just such a cool fight because think about how long the Straw Hats were fighting Moria just a little while ago. Yeah. And it really shows Jinbei's power here. I mean, of course, he's another warlord, so it kind of makes sense. But
Moria's not fighting on his home turf. There's seawater everywhere. That doesn't help.
No.
And that was interesting to me because we never really got to see what Moria looked like in a vacuum. We only got to see Moria's world. And I really liked Thriller Bark. It's probably my favorite part of One Piece still. Mm-hmm. And so to see him with everyone else was really interesting from that perspective.
Seeing all these characters, I mean, Crocodile we mentioned, but we basically see, and Smoker and Tashigi in the middle there. All these characters who we've seen in other arcs just interacting with each other, and that we see in future arcs.
Speaking of characters you see in future arcs, Zach, there's a tiny little diagonal panel on one of these pages where Luffy says, "I'm your little brother," and as Oda notes in an SBS later on, you can see where they poured the cups of sake. There's a shadow for where a third cup should be.
Yeah, I mean, we're not spoiling anything because that's in this part that we're going to be talking about very soon. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's I love that little touch.
Mm-hmm.
That's cute. I never knew that.
That's why I love reading the SBS, and I try to do it as much as I can when I'm doing this read through.
Mostly, I do it for the fart jokes and penis jokes.
Penis jokes, yeah,
definitely the penis jokes.
Diamond penis.
Look, I wonder how that even works. I don't think it would. That doesn't sound comfortable. I guess it's not always diamond. Am I going too far into this? You were talking about
diamonds are forever.
So Sengoku also blows the lid on Monkey D. Dragon being Luffy's father.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that as well. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the page.
To what end? I don't know.
I think he did it as I don't know. Maybe just to get people.
Why
to
raise the
attention.
stakes on Luffy? I don't get it. It still confuses me now why they were kind of legitimizing the enemy in that way. Even saying that Ace's true father. I thought that was kind of dumb. Maybe as a propaganda piece, but
That's
even
exactly
so,
what it was.
I think it was a propaganda piece against him. Because I guess they figure more bounty hunters in the future would go after him, and people in the present would. I don't know.
I mean, Sengoku has this whole like plan from the beginning where he's trying to goad Whitebeard into like attacking by leaking information that the execution's going to go on earlier than scheduled. So stuff like that.
I'm sorry. I'm just looking at that panel with the galaxy wink from Ivankov. It is just. I mean, you mentioned it a little earlier, Miles, but that's nightmare fuel. Or
the one where he has like 50 faces on the in a single panel.
Yeah,
so good.
I love Ivankov so much. And we also get like little. It's basically like fan fiction fights. I feel like a lot of this arc in a good way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. In a good way.
So, I mean, you get Jozu versus Doflamingo. You get... Jozu versus Crocodile. You get Jozu versus... Mihawk versus Luffy, which almost...
That was the big one. That was
so...
cool.
That's quite a ways away still.
There?
No, I think we're around there. I'm around there.
Yeah.
Ed.
Okay, well, I'm a little further back still.
Ed, I guess before we get there, are there any other moments you'd like to mention?
Yes, Buggy... Whitebeard condescending to Buggy is hilarious. Like,
oh yeah, I'll do that.
You can get Buggy to do anything by flattering him. Shanks does it later on, like by promising to give him a treasure map. He's just such a sucker.
Well, Whitebeard realizes, Buggy has a bunch of powerful guys who are aimlessly following him for some reason.
And we get Hancock like kicking through Smoker's weapon when he's trying to take down Luffy.
Oh yeah,
really?
She breaks it.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other moments? This will be Ed's corner of moments we skip through.
Yeah. Well, Hancock got the keys to Ace's handcuffs.
Oh yeah. That was Chekhov's key. That's what we called that back in the day.
Which is funny because it ended up being not that at all.
No, it was. It was not any of that.
Doflamingo is the one who spills the beans on Vegapunk turning Kuma into a fully weaponized human, as opposed to like having any humanity left. It's interesting.
Yes. Just some episode titles since we're here, and I forgot to mention them. So we talked about Little Oars Jr., so of course there's Up the Creek Without an Oars. Let's see what else we got here. We've got... I'm not mentioning that one. I guess there's not a lot of other ones that I could tell that were that funny.
But that one pun is worth it.
Yes, that one pun was worth it. I thought we did more oars jokes than that, but I guess we just did the one.
Just on the show, I guess, not in the title.
There's some more that come later, but I'll wait to mention them.
So one of the cool things about...
Yeah, go ahead, Miles.
One of the cool things about this whole arc is that it's all televised for the rest of the characters to see. In all the other parts, you don't really get a good perspective on what the rest of the world thinks. I mean, occasionally they'll do a cover story afterwards or something, but you get real-time reactions from like the supernovas and people around the world about what's going on. And that's really funny because Buggy keeps looking like Jesus Christ on TV.
Or, no, he's like doing that smirk
followers
like
around the world.
I'm Buggy. You may remember me from such attacks as Marineford. Basically, just
so
like
he's the Troy McClure of the war.
Mugging for the camera. He knows what he's doing.
Okay, so let's talk about Luffy versus Mihawk. It's short, but it's oh so sweet. Ed.
He cuts that whole tsunami, and Luffy actually starts to get his observation going, where he sees that Mihawk would cut his arm off.
So is that what that is? Because I remember when we were doing the manga recap for this, we're like, what the hell is going on? Why is he thinking it, and why are we seeing it like that? Yeah, I guess that is what that is, observation hockey. And yeah, it's just, you forget how extremely powerful Mihawk is. I feel like even at this stage, he's more powerful than 95% of the people here.
And Buggy is able to survive getting cut because he's able to separate himself.
Buggy is Mihawk's perfect adversary.
He's the Enaru to his Luffy.
Yeah. That's exactly it. He's way more powerful, but he can't defeat him.
When Mihawk bats his little tiny bomb back in his face, that is one of the funniest panels.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
That expression on his face is so good.
What's next, Ed?
I just love this line. Thanks, Buggy. I'll never forget you. Luffy says that.
Yeah, it's a weird line from Luffy. So we get a lot of Oda panels going over what's going on and how it's just nuts and chaotic.
Sengoku orders them to shut off the broadcast. All that matters is that we win.
And why are they shutting the cameras off, Ed?
There is an army of Kumas, Zach.
And I guess they don't want them to see that. That's where I think we called that like the shit hitting the fan moment. Actually, we probably called every chapter the shit hitting the fan moment. But this is where the shit was like in the fan and making it so it couldn't move anymore.
What's that thing that Greg said a few weeks ago? Do you destroy the fan?
The shit has hit the fan and the fan has fell down and is just, I don't know. We're taking this too far again. That's been my thing this episode apparently. That was so nuts. Just that whole, oh my god, I can't.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they had blown up how much damage a single pacifista could do before this, and then to see like 20.
And then you see them doing their thing, and I think one of the spectators, describes how it just looks like hell, or it looks like just something from another world. And it really does, 'cause it is. But it's just so nuts once they enter the fray. Although you do kind of forget they're there after a while.
Yeah, they just sort of keep. They just keep fighting. They're like destroying everything.
Yeah.
And Luffy just keeps getting knocked back, and I think Jinbei rescues him a couple of times.
Yeah, Remember, Luffy's been fighting since Impel Down constantly, which comes back as a major plot point a little later. And then, should we talk about the last page, or is there anything you want to talk about before that?
Well, the plan to turn off the broadcast did not work because Buggy's still mugging for the camera.
I mean,
the one that he stole, which is just. But this guy Squard comes back, and Whitebeard had been trying to get a hold of him, but it's time for him to join the battle. But he's not going to join it on the right side. He stabs Whitebeard right in his 6-pack.
15-pack, you mean, or 6?
No, I mean, yeah, it's not that big. It's just very large muscles.
Well, depending on the page.
Do you remember?
He does
guys
crunches between panels.
Do you remember what you guys thought at that moment?
All.
Yeah.
I remember thinking people might die.
You forgot that happened, Miles?
I totally forgot this happened.
Yeah, I mean,
like 100%.
It was super big at the time, and then in retrospect, you're like, that really didn't matter at all.
Matter.
No.
But it was, I mean, looking at it now, the imageries, everyone has a reaction to it for a reason. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's the first time that it looks like the tides are turning against the pirates, and everyone sees it on TV. And
it's the strongest man in the world getting stabbed through the chest by one of his own allies. It's pretty shocking.
And now that we're in between volumes, you want to talk about the 57 and 58 volume covers?
Good, yeah, I forgot to mention that. Ed, do you want to start us? What did you think of 57?
I love, it honestly makes more sense with the title of the next volume, but I love the imagery here. I just love Whitebeard's big face. I don't know what else to say about it. And the fire in the background.
I don't know how I feel about the blue scale. I mean, it's fine, but I don't know how I feel about it. I like the cover a lot, though. I mean, anything with Whitebeard's face on it, I'm for.
Yeah, but
volume 58, though, I could totally get.
Go.
Yeah, that is a cover.
Is this the first time Garp's on the cover?
No,
I think it might be
45. I think he was on the one with.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, sorry, we've just been doing all these.
You can just rattle that off. Oh yeah, he's
right in the front there.
This volume.
Yeah, sorry about that.
This is a great cover anyway. It's got everyone I care about, everyone that's important, and you can't even see the seagull on Sengoku's hat. How sad.
Well, the seagull symbol is at the top under the logo, so I guess that's not as good. I'm going to be honest.
No.
And the Whitebeard Pirates logo is also hidden, or not hidden, but it's right there in the background on 57's cover too.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a villains, like hero and villain ones that we get, except it's Whitebeard and Marines, kind of, with Luffy on both of them.
But yeah, I love the title of this volume as well, 58. The name of this era is Whitebeard. I just love that line when it comes up in the volume.
So yeah, I guess we should start with reaction shots, specifically Morio's. There's nothing much else to say about that. I remember Whitebeard's reaction to Squard being especially poignant there, where he just, he gets down and he hugs him. I guess I should first say why he did it, right? Ed, do you want to...
Right, because Gold Roger destroyed Squard's crew, and the Navy lied to Squard and told him that, Whitebeard's going to sell out all his allies so that he can save his son, Ace, and make him the Pirate King. And Squard was, he felt betrayed, but... I still can't believe he honestly believed that Marine. Although I guess he was still in shock from learning about.
Well, you know
Ace's
who the
true father.
Marine was, Ed, right?
It was Akainu.
Okay,
yes.
I just want to make sure that you don't have to hide it. I mean, people here have read it. It's pretty messed up, and the screen goes off during that, and you have that frozen buggy there, and frozen in carbonite. It's great. It's all great. And then the encircling walls that we mentioned.
But I just want to say, Marco raises a very important point that Whitebeard could have seen that coming. I think that was our first indication that Whitebeard really intended to die here.
Yeah.
Like on purpose.
I think he went into this knowing that this was it for him. Mm-hmm. And he does it in the most manly way, as we've said time and time again.
But you can't condemn a child for the sins of his father.
No,
he says.
No. And I love this.
And then he reiterates. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Miles, please.
And then Whitebeard reiterates that you better be ready to die if you're gonna keep going from this point on, because if there's that level of betrayal, that it's gonna get worse as the situation gets more dire. They're really setting us up for death here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
I was so convinced no one was gonna die.
You see, if it were a normal One Piece arc, you'd definitely be correct. However, this is...
I think at this point, even everyone on our podcast was thinking, yeah, Whitebeard's going to die.
Yeah, we were a little less sure about Ace. I think I was a big proponent.
we thought Ace was going to get saved. I don't think... Until it happened, I don't think we believed Ace would die.
I think we waffled a lot on it. I think 1 week we'd be like, oh yeah, he's going to die. And the other week we were like, no, he's fine. Especially when it gets to a certain point.
It's not a strong belief. It's not a strong belief.
Whitebeard, I think.
During the reading, I'm like, what if he actually does kill Ace? That would be such a big deal. But Oda would never do that. And that's kind of where I was at until, you see it.
We'll talk. We'll definitely talk about that in depth, because that's a very big moment in the series. And I just love Whitebeard entering the fray here, because he basically was just wrecking shit up, but from atop his perch, and him getting just into the battle just starts this whole, I guess, the second half here of this fight, and you get these just beautiful looking 2-page spreads here. One of my favorite. These are still like, to this day, some of my favorite 2-page spreads of just the water tilting. I don't even know how to describe that.
The island tilts, but he also fucks up John Giant really good.
Yeah, but I just mean, like, he messes the ocean up, even, like, even beyond the island. I don't even know how to quite describe it. But yeah, he does mess John Giant up pretty good. And the Admirals do the Macarena, as we called it.
Yes. The Admiral Macarena.
I'm glad that I remember a lot of these puns off the top of my head.
Well, that was an episode title, wasn't it?
Right, those are the only ones I remember off the top of my head. If I'm saying it, it was probably an episode title. And then that wall goes up, and...
I never noticed this, but Whitebeard does punch John Giant right in the dick. Look at that. Or it's on the same page as the Admiral Macarena.
Does he? No, it looks like it's in the stomach.
That is a lot closer to his legs.
I'll take your word for it, Ed. Oh, on the second page. I see now. That's gotta hurt. That would fit. I've been reading those SBSs, and that would definitely fit Oda's humor, I think. Is Whitebeard a cheap shot?
on your dick?
What is that? Wish we could name these.
That's a sex move, actually. Yeah.
And then we get the magma fists from the sky, which just kind of reminded me of, like, I don't know, like some sort of like 80s sci-fi movie. I feel like
it reminded me of Gurren Lagann.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
But that was in space.
Just rocket punch. Hell yeah.
Yeah. It is like Gurren Lagann. God.
At this point, I'm thinking, how is this a weekly manga?
Yeah. I don't understand. I don't know. I don't know how we did it. And you also get reaction shots from all of the supernovas who are heading out because the cable got cut. Damn you, Time Warner! And you see,
I think Bonnie is like the one who's really, really upset.
Yeah, what was she? Was she in this part? I don't even remember.
Yeah, she's in one panel.
Okay. And then we get like the result of the magma, and it destroys the ship. And Whitebeard tries to punch through the wall, and the wall doesn't move, which is crazy to think about. I don't know what the hell that's made of.
Maybe it's got sea stone in it.
Yeah, and we see oars blocking, as I mentioned earlier, block the encircling wall. And Luffy's dramatic entrance, as seen on the cover of this volume, in front of the three admirals. Kind of amazing he survived this in retrospect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's in front of three people who definitely could beat him in a second.
Yeah. And he gets a little one over on them, but he doesn't really do much.
No. And
the stamp gathering is pretty cool. Anticipating that Aokiji would freeze the mast, but
you also get Doflamingo versus Crocodile, the fight we've all been waiting for. And I remember the jokes we were making here, where Doflamingo was really trying to get Crocodile on his team.
Yeah. Crocodile's like, "Hey, you want to be my subordinate?" These people are not compatible.
No. As similar as they may be, they are not compatible. And meanwhile, there's another ship that is a paddle ship, and Oars throws it into the plaza, making things slightly more chaotic. And you just get those great panels of Whitebeard messing shit up again, over and over.
I don't know. Did anyone else notice that the space between panels got larger in this volume?
Yeah, they started doing that border thing.
Okay, it's not just me.
No, it's not just you. I didn't notice that. It's just this volume though, and I don't know why.
Maybe it's because of all the 2-page spreads.
I think that's probably what it is, but it kind of ruins it a little for me. I think
a little bit. There's excessive border.
A little too much border. So okay, I think we gotta move through this at a little bit more of a pace, because things just continue to get crazier and crazier.
There's a great color spread right here. The Battle Fruits 9. That's one of my favorites.
Really?
Oh yeah, I like that one.
I think
it's like a tokusatsu thing.
This is when they did 3 in a row. You had this one, the watercolor one, and the Strong World one, because that's when the movie was coming out.
For the movie, yeah.
Oh, I'm actually sitting right under that the cola one.
I get it. You have all the color spreads on your wall, Ed.
It's summertime, man. Gotta drink some cola.
Oh my god. Ed, we get it. You have the calendars. Every week with this.
I'm surrounded by beautiful art.
I feel like we're an old married couple, and I'm just trying to get you to take down that damn calendar. Sorry.
It's like that sketch from SNL with Chris Farley reading from the Zaggett's Guide.
Okay. So we get a couple fights here. I'll just say the fights we're getting. If there's stuff you want to mention, please interrupt.
Ace's tears.
Yeah.
All the time.
That too.
Moria and Jozu versus Aokiji a little bit.
We get, is that Dalmatian, I'm guessing, versus Luffy?
Yeah, he's the giant with the dog power.
Yeah. And it's reminiscent of the Lucci fight, I think, just because it's like the same kind of moves. It's the finger pistol, which still doesn't sound right. And then
I like when Kizaru says to Luffy, "Guts alone aren't enough to save him. That's to save someone. You have to actually be strong."
And Luffy also gets shot. Yeah, he gets shot through the chest. He does not do well here. And
he got stabbed by Aokiji a little earlier on too.
And Whitebeard picks him up by the legs, examining him. It's like, what is this? And just tosses him aside, saying, protect him. But I think he's, or what is it? You pathetic young fool. You're all mass and spirit. You talk too big. I love idiots like you.
Then he was like, "See, I told you this would happen. Look how big his face is.
It's the size of the wall.
It's like 10 times the size of Jinbei, and that's not including the hair."
It's a really crazy panel, and even Whitebeard Well, he doesn't have a reaction to it, but he's dwarfed by the size of that head. You also get a brief Whitebeard versus Akainu thing, and then you just get like vignettes of everyone fighting, and
Kobe?
even is this Kobe's part here, or did I skip through Kobe's
Yeah,
part?
Luffy punches Kobe in the
I
face.
skipped through that. Do you want to talk about that, Miles? Besides,
I might be ahead of you.
You
Well,
might
no,
be a
that's
little.
just, again, it's a little one-page story, and I don't know. It's nice seeing Kobe still have ambition and have it get completely crushed in a single punch. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Character development.
No, it is. It is character development.
Actually, I mean, I was a little further behind than that, actually.
Yeah, I think I'm a little further behind, but it's okay. Because this is chaotic as hell. We're trying to make sense of it, but it's still chaotic as hell to describe everything that's going on here.
Oh, here we get the flashback, the first flashback to little kid Ace, like wondering whether or not he should live, and like being told by people that he'd be better off if Roger's son just died, you know. And like Ace almost kills some little street kids because they talk shit about it.
Well, Miles,
Roger.
you kind of, when we started going through this, you were kind of saying, I want to see Garp do more. And I really think, in a way, this is kind of Garp's arc. Because he really has to deal with the imminent and destined, almost, death of one of his grandsons, really. Like, someone he, quote-unquote, helped raise, even though he was pretty absent, if you ask me. And this little vignette Ed was talking about definitely goes to that a little bit. Yeah.
It also shows off that he's got that rad flower print shirt. Yeah. No. So the thing is, Garp has a really good story arc in this arc, but it's, again, really hard to see on the micro chapter by chapter level.
Exactly. I think this arc benefits significantly from marathon reading or watching.
Is there any arc that we haven't said that for?
I think at the same time, it was a ton of fun to read week to week, because it's every week you were like, whoa, what the hell? What's going to happen next? This is, by the way, Marco Does Something was one of our episode titles. We could call What Happens Next. Marco is handicapped and no longer can do anything.
Well, yeah, they get distracted when Whitebeard coughs up blood, so Jozu takes it from Aokiji, and Marco gets it from Kizaru, and they're just... That's really when Akainu takes the upper hand. And
well, this is just where the Marines start taking the upper hand. Like, Whitebeard clearly starts losing control here, as, like, all the Vice Admiral starts stabbing him and shooting at him.
Yeah.
And he just says, look, I'm Whitebeard. I'm gonna get you all the hell away from me. And he still has swords sticking out of him. It's just... The badassery of Whitebeard cannot be understated.
Yeah. And Luffy demands the power to be able to fight now, so Ivankov gives him... He's like, I have it your way, and gives him the hormones again, and he freaks out.
It's, and he, not only does he freak out, is once he runs into the battlefield, when Ace is going to be prematurely executed, his Conqueror's Hockey comes out there, a little bit accidentally, because he doesn't know what he's doing, and shocks everyone. I think is that when they... Oh, no, they said Dragon the Revolutionary all the way at the beginning. This would have been the time to say it, I feel like, if they were going to reveal.
Right after, and actually right after he gets the hormones is when he punches Kobe.
Yeah, well, you're the one who's behind it. So that's when Whitebeard decides to get everyone to assemble around Luffy. After the Conqueror's Hockey, we get kind of reactions from everyone, and Whitebeard decides to back everyone up here. And then we get, I think, your favorite scene, Miles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so there's just the wine glass is really what does it over that. I was also pretty obsessed with Ivankov and Inazuma at this point. I thought they were the funniest things in the world. And like,
rightfully
even
so,
before,
they're great.
No, they're so funny in the reaction faces. But even before you see Inazuma come out of the hair, you see just a glass of wine, and it's like, that guy knows what's up. And then the scissor fruit cuts concrete in the dumbest way possible. It just doesn't feel even like a cartoon. It just feels like One Piece. Nothing else would do something like this.
But you also get your other wish, Miles, that Garp does something.
Garp does something.
Yeah, and this is kind of the culmination of the Garp story we have here. And it's this really sweet and like kind of quiet moment in the midst of all this chaos, where Garp kind of realizes what's really important, and it's not necessarily his job, but it's his family, and he takes a punch from Luffy in the face.
He closes his eyes and he basically lets it happen.
And I really, really, really like that moment.
It's a really good page.
Yeah, it's just like I think that's a super crucial moment in this arc, obviously, but definitely for both those characters.
And you look at Luffy right after punching him, and he hasn't lost a shred of determination. And I think that speaks just so loudly to his conviction that it doesn't faze him.
Well, it's that, and also his grandfather has punched him more times than I could count. And thrown him into the wilderness and attached balloons to him, and
we also and now we also get like the Buddha Sengoku, like we find out his power. Oh my god! And then the key gets broken.
What did they call Sengoku's power in the SBS? I forgot. Like his hair looked like raspberries or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Then the key gets broken, and you think the key is going to do it, but Mr. Three's there, and I love that you could actually, you see him earlier on if you know it's coming.
Like background, yeah.
Yeah, he's there, and he's dressed as that soldier guy.
And it's important that actually Crocodile took out the other executioners before that, so they had to bring in the ringers.
Right, and the ringers one of them happened to be Mr. 3.
Yeah, he was in position there, but Ace is freed, man.
Yeah, and this is when I was like, okay, maybe he won't die.
Yeah.
And then he becomes Marty McFly.
Don't celebrate yet.
You get some really cool and important panels of Ace and Luffy fighting side by side, which is sweet.
Some of the best perspective Oda's done.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff.
I
They
agree.
did not capture that in the anime very well. This is the one chapter where I sit, where you can easily show it off as this is why the manga experience is so wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Which it is, yeah.
I love that Doflamingo's like, we should let him go. It would be funny.
Yeah, him and Akainu clearly don't agree with that. Anyway, Whitebeard also decides this is probably the time to leave, and I'm just gonna... Or this is the time for me to die and for you all to leave.
It's also because Squardo's trying to give up his life, and you won't let him.
Right. And he decides to just destroy Marine headquarters. Time for a little bit of an interlude here. As I mentioned, some other episode titles, because they come into play here. It's All in the Hair was one of them for Inazuma there. We had a lot of Whitebeard titles, including Whitebeard House, Barba Blanca, Porque. I don't remember why we did that in Spanish, but okay. And the name of this podcast is Whitebeard, and that's because the name of this era is also Whitebeard. As we get into this kind of...
I love that monologue he gives at the end. Like, no ship can carry him into the new age. These are his final orders. Ugh.
Yeah, and he is a relic of the old age, and the old age was definitely more awesome than anything you could imagine, because Whitebeard is like that. And so this is the moment that Akainu takes, after Ace thanks Whitebeard, which is also a really important moment, Whitebeard asks him, were you happy with me as your father? And he says, of course, which is this really touching moment between the two of them. Which I think Oda had been doing a good job of in the background. There's all these like little character development things that he put on there. And that is when the Marty McFly moment happens, which is what I'm calling this. When Akainu basically calls Whitebeard he calls Whitebeard a loser.
He calls Ace a coward. He calls all the Whitebeard pirates cowards. Your real father was the winner, Ace, stuff like that. Whitebeard will die a loser.
And I love how they kind of explain this away in the flashback, because otherwise this would be inordinately frustrating, which it was when I read it. It's like, oh, come on, just run. What are you doing? You know you can't beat him. And ultimately, Ace sacrifices himself for Luffy, and we do a whole episode on this that will do much more justice than what we're going to do going through it quickly here. But I'll ask now, what were your thoughts when you saw the Magma Fist and originally, and what are they today? Miles, do you want to go first?
I'm getting really emotional just looking at this again, to be honest. I knew the moment that you saw the fist go through Ace that he was dead. I was really careful during this arc to read the chapters first before I jumped in the discussion.
Yeah.
And I was really glad I did for this one, because I knew that Ace would be the first death at this point. And wow. I this is good storytelling. I really thought that this chapter did a good job building up to this moment without ever making me think before it happened that it would happen.
Ed?
Yeah, it was so crushing. It's like there's no coming back from this, you know. Like it's like we're gonna finally because we had how many 13 years 12 years later of no deaths in One Piece. People don't die in One Piece, but now they die in One Piece. So
that happens once every 12 years. Twice every 12 years. One of and someone remarked upon this. I forget who on Twitter. I apologize. Just like how well drawn that final page is with Ace. The "Thank you for loving me" page, which is heartbreaking. But
they get the smile and the frown like on his hat.
Yeah, it's just there's so much. It's such, and I know there are a lot of Ace fans who are probably skipping over this part. But there are. it's so well done, and it makes you really care about this death as Luffy would. And there's also those little touches like the smile that you mentioned there, Ed. That it you realize, of course. That Oda had been building up to this the whole time, and that this is a very pivotal moment in Luffy's character. And he does a good job with it.
And like he drops a whole bunch of things in this. Like he's talking about, it reminds me of Sabo. If I didn't have a little brother that needed taken care of, I would have given up then. And he would have given up after Sabo. Interesting. And if you ever see Jadon again, give my regards.
Yeah, I love those little.
Yeah.
And now I've talked to a lot of fans of One Piece that are like, okay, I read this. I had to stop. It was too much. Or I saw this coming. Yeah. Jennifer, who works at Otakon, Piro, who we've talked to before, she had to stop here. It was just too much. I've talked to other people that was the case, too. Like, this arc, I think, just wrecked them a little bit too much. I mean, personally, I think that's a huge mistake because also the flashback to follow really gives so much to this moment that
but then the 3 years following it.
Yeah.
Fishman Island, not necessarily the most popular arc in One Piece.
We'll talk about that next week. Let's see if we still believe that. I'm hoping that I could change my mind slightly, but you're probably correct, Miles.
You can see Luffy basically dies inside, and Jinbei has to save his life after his eyes go out, basically.
Yeah, and it makes sense.
That's so brutal.
Yeah.
He's been fighting for like the whole day, 2 days, however long it's been straight, and impelled down to Marineford, and it just finally catches up to him. And we were kind of predicting what would Luffy's reaction be here, and in retrospect, this is the only one that made sense. Can I also mention that half of Whitebeard's face gets melted off?
Yeah. In the anime, it's half of his mustache.
I hate that. What a cop-out.
It's not like he's going to need it anymore.
The mustache?
No, the face.
It was
just saying.
It was the most badass moment, I think, in a while. First off, Whitebeard just goes crazy on Akainu. He gets destroyed. To the point where afterwards people were like, "Oh, you're still alive, Akainu?" After which is somewhat surprising. After Whitebeard pummels him.
Yeah, Whitebeard splits the ground, and he's on one side, and all the other pirates are on the other side, so he wants to make them run.
Yeah, he wants to say, okay, this is it. And then, okay, so Ace is dead, Whitebeard has half his face melted off. How could it get crazier than this?
Introduce a bunch of new characters.
The Blackbeard pirates return.
What the fuck? The guy is huge.
San Juan Wolf is, to this day, one of the weirdest characters, looking-wise, and he's the size of an entire island. and his face is shaped like onigiri.
It's more like shaped like a chestnut, kind of.
It looks just like onigiri, doesn't it? I thought that's what it looked like. Maybe a chestnut.
I don't know.
Either way, it's
peach?
weird looking.
Yeah, they finally
peach.
noticed us. So you want to run down all the new Blackbeard pirates?
You got Pizarro.
Pizarro!
Didn't you just make that joke on a podcast last week?
Yes, I do it every time.
He is a weird looking guy.
He's like a cat.
Vasco shot. Not much to say about him other than he has earrings on his neck. I've been mentioning all my moon theories, so why not with Crescent Moon Hunter Katarina Devon? I'm kind of curious what her connection is there. He get impelled.
I think her name should have a few more names in it. Crescent Moon Hunter. That's just. Is that really a title befitting such a woman?
She's enrapturing.
It looks like Blackbeard's sister. It's the same nose.
Or like Blackbeard and Usopp's like illegitimate child or something. God. I don't know. Of course, Shiryu we know. I guess it's all of them.
Yeah, Impelled Down is all fucked up. So
and we later find out they let all the level 6 prisoners go, and they made them all fight to the death, and they took the ones that survived.
But I want to. I mean, it makes sense to bring this up now, but the world government's like, yeah, you have to cover all this up, Sengoku. You can't actually put wanted posters out for the people who escaped. He's like, oh, what the hell?
Sengoku is just so stressed out.
It's like that's like the straw that broke the camel's back. It's like why he quits at the end, I think.
Well, the funny thing is, at the end of the day, the Marines win this. I think that's fair to say. But Sengoku just has the worst day. He's just not having fun here. At least enjoy yourself. Look at Blackbeard. He's having fun. Destroying stuff. And
like he tries to take out the entire island. He splits the justice a little bit.
And he tries to take out Whitebeard, and he's like, now you don't have a devil fruit ability. But Whitebeard just stabs him through the neck and then crushes him into the ground. But then all of the Blackbeard pirates decide to shoot him. Or stab him, or whatever, in a brutal scene.
Oh, I like how Blackbeard tries to talk to Whitebeard like, I'm your son, you're not really going to kill me, right? But yeah, he does it. I think it's going back to the whole Thatch thing again. He killed Thatch.
And, well, yeah, and kind of Ace, too.
Yeah, he was responsible for that.
And he's at least partially responsible. And then you get this very important 2 pages, which are... that I mentioned
before that. The One Piece does exist. That is important.
Well, I was going to mention the page before that, too, because that's really... I mentioned this a lot in the One Piece connection, so I'll go through it quickly. We kind of get a hint to the Will of D happening a long time ago here, or related to something a long time ago. We'll definitely talk in the Reverie segment a little bit more about all of this. But yeah, the One Piece does exist, and so he's starting out a new... or rejuvenated age. And as Sengoku says, you fiend! I'm sorry. And it feels like an understated reaction. And you figure out
look at his face, too, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of One Piece Part 2.
It is.
This page.
It is.
This is the new intro.
It's the preamble, right. It should be Whitebeard saying it at the intro from now on, but it isn't. And you find out what Whitebeard wanted this whole time was just a family, and he had it. And so that's why... And when he was talking to Roger, he's like, I'm not interested in the One Piece or whatever it may be.
Yeah. He's like, Roger's like, I could tell you how to get through Raftel. I was like, that's not what I want, man.
And Whitebeard dies in the manliest way possible without a scratch on his back. And then shit continues to go down, which is kind of... First...
That's the name of the chapter.
Shit goes down? Oh, yeah, it is. Outrageous events one after another.
Whitebeard was 72 years old. That's crazy.
I would have thought older, because I feel like it would have been more badass if he were in his 80s, but I'll deal with 72. It seems...
Well,
hey, guys,
for the
Whitebeard
world
is a
of One
magic
Piece,
trick.
that's immortal.
Yeah. I forgot...
You want to see a magic trick, Zach?
Sure. What's the magic trick?
Blackbeard's got a magic trick for you.
He could eat 2 devil fruits? Is that what it is?
What the fuck, yeah.
I still don't get it. I still don't know how that happened. And it baffles me. And there are tons of theories out there and very good ones. It baffles me.
Here is not the place for that.
Here is not the place, yeah. And you get these really badass pages with Akainu, who's now even angrier and dripping of hot liquid magma. Am I making more Austin Powers references? And and him and Jinbei go head to head, and meanwhile Blackbeard goes head to head against everyone because he has those 2 devil fruits, declaring that his era has begun. And this is when I think the fear of God kind of got struck into me with Blackbeard. He is creepy in this, and I think rightfully so. I don't know if you guys thought that.
He's invincible. He is the greatest. That's what he says.
Well,
Yeah.
it sets him up to be end boss. I still believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I'm not completely current, but I still, from this chapter, see him to be the one thing that's going to get in the way of Luffy and Raftel.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
like he declares that his era begins, but later on in the next volume, Luffy like basically is declaring that it's his era when he rings the bell.
Yeah, I mean, there's that as well. And then Sengoku kind of makes not short work of the Blackbeard pirates, but holds them back. You also get the fight. You get that fight between Akainu and Jinbei continuing, and Jinbei does not do a good job. In fact, Luffy loses his hat in this and gets burnt. And Crocodile has to step in to save them and throw them in the air to Buggy. It's like I'm describing a baseball game. And Buggy gets the Jinbei and runs off. And you see just like this apocalyptic magma fist coming out trying to catch Buggy and Jinbei there.
And I also want to talk about, we get a little bit of like Sengoku's justice, like especially when Blackbeard is threatening to sink the islands. Like, don't you dare like talk about sinking this island. I won't be taken lightly. This is justice, for all the citizens of the world who fear pirates, because pirates are the bad guys. Remember, the Marines have to remain strong and chivalrous for this reason.
And that's when the Whitebeard pirates and Akainu make their final face-off. And, there's Trafalgar Law for no reason coming up.
For no reason.
I've got it. I'm a doctor.
That is that is one of my favorite lines.
And the most determined-looking Beppo in the world. It's what a great page.
Just a few more episode titles before we round this arc off. We got Face Off because, of course,
Yes.
the Pride Upon his back. We got Back in Black. The Doctor is this one, and Hats Off to You is coming up here.
Didn't we try and turn that into a sitcom, Zach?
Did we? I don't remember.
Gotta listen to that episode in a while.
I haven't thought about those episodes in a while. So we get Law, who basically catches Luffy and tries to save them. But as this is happening, Blackbeard tests out his powers in math.
He wrecks Marineford pretty well.
And just things continue to go crazy, and it's just this apocalyptic feeling. You got Akainu going nuts and rampaging, and Blackbeard rampaging, and Kobe is just not taking this
The voice of reason.
Sabaody is going to be like run over by a tidal wave that Blackbeard caused.
Pacifistas, and Buggy's getting shot by Kizaru. No one likes that. And Kobe says, that's enough. He steps in. And he saves a precious few seconds here.
A few seconds of courage.
And then, if you couldn't think it would get crazier, Shanks steps in here. I think this was one of the biggest shocks of this, even with everything that had preceded this. It's just I did not expect the Deus Ex Machina of Shanks just walking in there.
Well, you had to kind of expect it because like Shanks is on the move. He like stopped Kaido the other day.
Well, how did he get there so quick? Because that's in the New World and this is the Grand Line, and it's still kind of confusing.
Yeah.
And just to round things off here in the war, they basically put everything to a halt. They're like, look, if you want to continue this, that's fine, but you're going to have to get through us to keep going. Yeah.
He basically allows everyone to save face, and he also thanks Kobe basically for your few seconds of courage will basically influence you, basically save the world. He didn't say save the world, but it's basically what he says.
And he also gives Luffy back his he gives Luffy back his hat through Buggy, who, as Ed mentioned, was bribed slightly, falsely.
I love how Kizaru is afraid of Ben Beckman.
Yeah, that's really curious. What could Ben Beckman shoot that's faster than light?
Yeah. A hockey? I don't know.
Hockey bullets? We'll find out. Also, the Red Hair Pirates have a monkey. Important to note. I think we mentioned that during the Reverie for the first read-through, the monkey somewhere in there. But it's great to see Shanks again. We really don't see this crew very much, so this was a treat. And the war ends, and that's...
A little bit like Doberman and Akainu were like, I'm going to go after their severed heads. Like, you're not going to stop me, and Sengoku puts a stop to that.
Oh, I didn't remember Doberman.
Yeah, he says, I'm going to collect their severed heads, basically.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That's like, it's little things like that think him, like, one of the most, like, underrated, bastards.
Yeah, well, you forget because Akainu is such an overrated bastard, and he's right next to him.
I think he's properly rated.
Properly rated bastard. That's accurate. And that's it.
As Kichi tries to freeze the sea, and Kizaru rains down like light blast, but he get away in the yellow submarine.
Oh yeah.
I love how Shanks is like, it's too early to see Luffy now. It would violate our agreement. Luffy isn't a great pirate yet.
So Miles, since we don't shut up and we're going on a little long, you're gonna have to leave us soon. So I want what were your overall thoughts rereading the Marineford arc?
Well, first, I'm really frustrated to have Yasop and Luffy so close to each other and not connect over their shared connection.
Yeah.
Like, I every time I see Yasop, I just want that to come up. Like, hey, did you know that, your son is on my crew? No, but the war was already over by the time Shanks and everyone showed up. And so having them put a good end cap on it really made it feel satisfying. Because otherwise, I can't think of any other way that Oda could have continued on from this point, because it kept escalating even after the deaths, without it turning into something else entirely. Because he could have just kept on going and going and going, and all the characters realized at that point that there was a solution that they could be happy with. I still don't know why Akainu stopped at all. I really surprised. That feels almost out of character for me, but this was a really satisfying ending to a really emotional arc.
Yeah, it's emotional. Going through this has been as chaotic as I felt like reading it was. It's just really hard to describe, and we skipped over a ton. And people are going to be like, why didn't you go through this? It's because it would have taken us another 3 hours, I think, if we were as thorough as we wanted to be. And we have podcasts going through these chapter by chapter, so you could listen to those if you want more. I guess they're different kind of details because they were, fresh reading them week to week. But I gotta say, it was a lot of fun reading this. I think I read this pretty quick in like a day or two. I think this one took me 2 days, but
this was a single sitting for me. I couldn't stop rereading it. I was so glad for this opportunity to re-experience this part of One Piece.
Anytime, Miles. It's always great to have you on. I'm looking forward to when you catch up in the manga, so we can have you on the podcast proper too.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, so I'll let you go. Thank you so much for coming on the show, though.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Miles. Okay, Ed, it is time to go through the second part of this saga, if you want to call it that. Now, Ed, we did this... we did the manga recaps for this way back in 2010. So I figured, completely on purpose, that we should, kind of get those old times back and just do a podcast, the two of us, for the rest of this.
Yes, this was totally intentional.
Totally intentional, Ed. And so first we have the Aftermath War stuff, and then we'll get into the flashback, which is going to be the bulk of what we talk about here. And since it's just the two of us, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be insightful.
Yeah. So we start off looking at the other 7 supernova crews basically maintaining their distance here. And Bonnie is actually blaming somebody in particular. We don't really get a sense of who that is.
Yeah, and Bonnie, I'll just say to this day, is the most mysterious, I feel like. We don't really She's just mysterious as hell. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if I noticed, but on the next page where they say Whitebeard said the One Piece exists, that's Jaya, right?
Yeah, that's Mocktown.
Yeah, I don't know if I noticed that before, but it's just very clearly Mocktown.
Those, I would recognize that tower anywhere.
Yeah, because that's what Bellamy sprung off of, right?
Right. And Brownbeard is here. Loser.
We see G3. And Brownbeard, that guy won't come back.
I don't know.
And we then go to the ship where Law operated on Luffy and Jinbei. And I found this... I love all these interactions because it's just such a odd and eclectic group of people. I want to talk a little bit more about the scene in the Reverie segment in particular.
Yeah. I like Beppo being meek before with Hancock.
Yeah, I forgot about that gag. Because Beppo has a few little gags, and that's one that persists here.
Like the looking for female bears.
Yeah, that's a... I don't know if that's as much as a gag as a joke. A recurring joke. I guess that's what a gag is.
Eva returns to Kamabaka Queendom. It's where, and he's going to see Sanji. So.
And we talked a little bit about this last time. All the level 6, not last time, in the previous segment. The level 6 prisoners that got released and Sengoku's reaction, but we didn't talk about how Doflamingo takes out Gecko Moria and says it's from someone higher than Sengoku, who to this day we don't quite know who that is, but I think we have a little bit more of an idea of who that may be. Again, a good discussion for the Reverie segment.
Magellan is in bad shape too, so and in Sengoku, I think he really likes Magellan, so he's trying to make him don't let him do anything stupid like kill himself or something.
And so we go to 2 weeks after the war, and we start kind of in a flashback from where we just were, where Ivankov heads off, as you said. And Luffy is recovering on Amazon Lily, and recovering is a very iffy word because he's having a lot of emotional fallout, obviously.
Like his psyche is damaged. Like he has a brother. Well, not anymore. He doesn't. So he has to deal with the fact that that's gone now. He's gone.
Hancock also is typical Hancock through this whole thing.
Yeah. And Yon is just being Yon throughout this whole thing too. So
it's so this is just like, it's a very different Luffy than we usually see, and it's just Luffy going nuts, and you get flashbacks that
he's trying to hurt himself, and he's basically having, I don't know, I always think of it, it's a conception of PTSD that they talked about on the West Wing, with not being able to remember it without reliving it. He's reliving it right now.
I mean, I understand, and I think Oda does a very good job of that, and then Luffy's like, "Look, I tried pinching my cheek. I know it's not. I know it's not a bad dream. I know it really happened. Ace really died." And you get Oda's crying faces here are exceptionally. I don't know. Him and Kobe, Luffy and Kobe, I remember, were a little bit much at the time, but we head straight into the flashback from there. I love this flashback. I don't know about you, Ed.
I mean, this is great in the manga, but this is actually the best episodes of one of the best arcs of the anime when they did it.
I gotta rewatch those.
They'll be coming out on DVD this season, right?
No, that's whenever season 8 happens.
Yeah, it'll be like the end
of 8. Yeah,
probably the second to last set of season 8.
So probably if things
next year
up 2016, I guess, or 17. I guess that's the next time I'll watch these, because I don't remember having as fond memories as you have. I think was in the middle of finals during a big bulk of this, so that might be part of it.
Yeah, and we find out right here, 10-year-old Ace is a really shitty kid. He's just a shitty little kid.
7-year-old Luffy is also kind of a 7. We already know what 7-year-old Luffy's like because we saw. Yeah. How old was it? I think this must be right after Shanks, right?
I think it must be because he has the scar on his face.
He's got the scar in the hat. So I forget. I think it was 10 years ago is when that happened. I think this kind of ties together everything between Shanks and today. This isn't one of the saddest flashbacks we've ever seen, but it's a really, really good one, and it's a really probably one of the most important ones, especially as it regards our characters.
It's actually one of the most heartwarming. Especially with the character Dadan. Dadan is this mother character.
I think it's heartwarming while you're reading it, and then it becomes heartbreaking when you come back and you realize Luffy's completely alone.
Well, no, he isn't.
Until we find out that he's not. But for a moment, you kind of feel Luffy's loneliness because he's lost both of his brothers.
Little Luffy hates bandits, and Dodonna's trying to like make him work. And Luffy's just having none of it. He's just out to follow Ace. He's like that little kid who's following his older brother around.
So one of the things that I really love about this flashbacks is the vignettes, and I think I've used that word a lot in this read through already. But that's really what we see. We have the one where Luffy chases Ace. We have the one later on with Luffy, Ace, and Sabo having fun together as time passes. And they're both great, and Oda really does a great job here, especially after the war where he was drawing such complex stuff. It's great to see stuff like this.
And it was also great to see in the anime, I mean, not to talk too much about the anime, but
please.
Sabo was voiced by the voice of Naruto.
Right. Yeah, that was also cool.
I love that little touch because a lot of people who watch the Japanese version of that, they recognize that voice, and just to have it's just like drawing a through line. Like everything, all these shows like are connected, and you can hear the voices and like recognize them sometimes. Because especially with the Naruto voice actor, she's very distinctive.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Miley Flanagan. And I'd love her to be Sabo. I don't know how likely that is with all the...
And so the Sabo part is actually pretty short. So I know she's not Texas-based, but she could get down there just for this flashback.
I mean, you could also record at home now, but the problem, I think, is the union thing, because I think Funimation doesn't have that. Anyway, we're getting off topic, but I would really like to see Miley Flanagan playing Sabo. I think that would be fun. So yeah, we get to see a little bit more of what Luffy's kingdom looks like too, which is interesting.
They actually named the island later on. I don't have it. It's right.
Is the island Goa?
No, it's not the kingdom. It's the Goa Kingdom.
We'll find out.
It's like at the end when the celestial dragons show up.
And we get Great Terminal, which is based off of a place in the Philippines, I believe.
Yeah. But then we get my favorite character of all time, Zach.
Who?
Porchemi Penis Face.
Oh, of course. You know what? He does have a penis face.
He really does. Do we have any more good episode titles right now?
Yeah, why don't I? This is
from the flashback.
This is a good time to do it. So we picked up from Hats Off to You, and of course we get Porchemi Penis Face. I don't know why you like that one so much. How to Be a Good Grandfather is always a good one.
And there was that anime montage of like him throwing Luffy into the ravine. Or that was back in Post Sunny's lobby. But
we got Trash, Wind, and Fire. We got Dragons, Transvestites, and Bears. Oh my!
Oh my!
The Oh my was not part of that. We'll get. I might as well do all of the ones for the flashback while I'm on it. The SS Rough. I think that's a little later. To eat is to live. We'll get to that, but that's still one of my favorite lines. I live by that line. And that's basically, I think that's just about it for until we get into some other stuff, so I'll save it.
All right. But yeah, Luffy, like, he finds like Ace and Sabo's hideout where they're hiding their money, and he gets caught really quick. He has no poker face at all. It's hilarious.
Porchemi Penis Face? Of course not. No, I know Luffy.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're talking over there. You're talking out the side of his mouth.
Luffy gets beaten up for the sake of Ace, who doesn't like him and won't talk to him, and beats him up himself, and Sabo, who he doesn't really even know.
And I think it's interesting that we find out that Porchemi is working for Blue Jam, who is a pirate, but somehow has the aristocracy of Goa in his pocket. So that'll come into play later, obviously, but it's interesting that a pirate would have that relationship.
Now, I mean, this whole flashback is kind of hard to talk scene by scene and what we're doing here. I'm going to try and do it as much as possible. I mean, it's not like a fast moving, oh my God, then there's this, like what we just talked about with the war. It's almost the complete opposite, which I'm a fan of. But we'll talk about big events as we go through here. And the first really big event is we find out a celestial dragon is coming to visit after Luffy finally gets out of, the Porchemi. After, I should say, he got saved by Ace and Sabo, and Porchemi got killed
by Blue Jam. But Ace never backs down, so he was able to beat Porchemi, and that backfired on him during the war. and that's why he died ultimately.
And poor
But
Chemi also died because he has a penis for a face.
yeah, but they get this. There's this great speech between Luffy and Ace, and they have to be friends because Luffy has nobody else. So Ace has found something that he can live for, something like that validates his reason for existing. So they need each other.
And Luffy found a friend.
Yeah,
And later a brother.
And now Sabo needs a place to live. So he just shows up on Don's doorstep.
I want to talk about the Volume 59 cover since we forgot to talk about that with Miles.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's talk about 59 and 60 then, as long as we're about that time. So I really loved the Volume 60 cover, actually the most. But the epic, they have Whitebeard with half his face off.
Yeah, I want to talk about 59 first just because it's chronological. The candy cane, what do you call it? Halberd, which is what I think Steve called it, is a little distracting, but I do like that. I like the cover in general. It gets across what's happening.
Yeah, it gets across. I don't know. Shanks is just kind of there doing, although Dragon on the...
That's about what Shanks does, though, so let's be honest, yeah. Ace is dead immediately, which makes the cover...
But his name is in the title of the art of the volume.
But it says the death of in front of it.
Yeah, well.
No, it's true. It could have showed him dying there. That's terrible.
That's bad.
Anyway, yeah, no, there's not much else to say about that. Volume 60 probably is one of my favorite covers. I think I said 54 and 60, I think, rank. I definitely want to do a full ranking when we're done here with the read through. But 60 might be one of my favorites. Ed, what do you like about 60?
Just, I like that smiling determination face on Luffy and, like, overlooking his little kid self. The rest of it, I especially love the parts about Luffy. That's what makes it for me.
I'm not an artist, but if I were, the little artistic sense I have, I like the symmetry to it. You got kind of the two father figures. I should say a father figure and his actual father
that he doesn't really care about,
or no. And also Makino and Dodon there. It's just a great cover. So why don't we start Volume 60 here?
Okay.
Right in the middle of the flashback, of course.
Gum Pistol.
The gum, yeah. I like how Luffy really doesn't know how to use his fruit still, and kind of getting used to it. Also seeing Sabo not really beating Ace here.
No, he beats him. He only loses
twice.
No. He wins 24 out of 50 between him and Ace. Ace wins 26 out of 50 between them. But right. I don't think Luffy doesn't get any wins.
No, he gets 0 for both. He lost every time. I think he mentioned that too during Alabasta. Remember, he said, "I used to fight Ace all the time and lost, and that was when I had my devil fruit and he didn't."
Right. Right. But they're running in, run in the interior town of Goa. The atmosphere is actually more stifling inside of there. And
we get a cameo by Vincent Adultman. You do not watch? Do you watch that show?
I've seen clips of BoJack. Okay. I know Vincent Adultman. I did a business.
I work at Wall Street. Whatever it was. I work in business store and do adult things. No, I love it's the 3 kids in a trench coat trope, but it's now because of that I appreciate it all the more. And they make a name for themselves, which is basically what we see, and they have fun, and they're brothers, and everything's great. And then, oh wait, Saba's father comes.
Yeah.
And the one thing I really love about the anime is they sneak in all the main voice actors into cool places, and this one is Brooke's voice. It's Cho, I think, right? Saba's dad.
Cool. They did that on Amazon Lily, too. I definitely recognize Nami's voice actress in that.
Zoro was Saldeth.
Yeah.
Sanji was, I think, an animal or something, maybe?
Minotaur?
He might be a Minotaur or something. I don't remember. They all show up, I think, at some point, but
yeah.
I find it Brooke and this guy have nothing in common at all.
Good actor.
Yeah, no, Cho is fantastic.
But they make Sabo spill the beans about his family. Ace and Luffy, they kind of really don't care as long as he wants to be with them,
Yeah, and nor should they. That fits their personalities perfectly. You also get kind of a mini Sabo flashback about how terrible his parents are, and I don't know, like some of the things about studying, I feel like I could relate to a little.
Yeah. But
And
they wanted him to marry into the royal family or else, and also children aren't supposed to like talk back and have opinions of their own.
I was gonna make social commentary. I will not. No, it's. I mean, this is it shows a lot about this part of the world that we don't really get to see in One Piece. What do the non-adventurer pirates do? Apparently, they become these, annoying people. Anyway, so we go from there, and Sabo says, "Look, I just want to set sail and get the hell out of here and be free."
And that's when they share their cups. They all, and it's funny, they all want to be captains, but Luffy's the only one who declares that he wants to be Pirate King.
Sabo wanted to be a navigator, he said. Well, not, like a captain navigator, I guess, but
yeah, like navigation was the one thing he did like to study.
Right. And we talked about this earlier, but there is the third sake cup. And I should have asked Ed, do you remember if you were surprised when Sabo came about, or what you thought of him originally? Like, who is this kid? Why is he here?
Yeah, I guess I was kind of confused by it, but like this is obviously an important person in Luffy's past, but like he was barely spoken of. But then like realizing that the tattoo on Ace's arm was dedicated to him, and like you started to get the sense that Oda's planned this all out from the beginning. So
yeah, I still don't know if he did.
But it's the main character's like childhood. He has to have thought about that.
Maybe. I mean,
I would agree with you more if it was another character.
Well,
but
let me put it this way. I think I don't know if this even ties into Sabo, but we talked about in Alabasta how Ace acted a lot like a monkey. Monkey D. Luffy, monkey D. Garp. He acted like someone of that line. Ace definitely does not act anything like them here. He acts like Roger apparently did here.
He wouldn't back down. He'd like destroy a navy, like someone's navy of a country.
That's what Roger did, yeah.
Yeah.
And
if they insulted his friend.
And here Ace acted similarly. But I don't know if that showed foresight or lack of foresight or what was going on. Who knows? It's very hard to prove you didn't plan something.
But Ace changed over this flashback, like from when he set sail.
That's true. He becomes he's a very grumpy kid.
Yeah.
But
Sabo
isn't, like, I'm just looking at this picture of them with Makino, and he's super grumpy. He's like, oh. Anyway, this is probably my favorite part of just the most happy part. I don't know
when they go independent and stuff, they're all living together.
Yeah, and they're going out hunting tigers and getting beat up by Garp, and
Garp shows up a couple of times in these little montages.
So I guess that was showing he was somewhat present, because otherwise it would just seem like he wasn't at all present. He had a job to do, though.
But we find out Sabo's father comes back, and this is Sabo's father. He paid Blue Jam to capture Sabo for him and bring him back to the High Town. But then and the only reason like he decides to go back is so that Ace and Luffy are safe. That's the kind of love there.
That's a real bitter moment. I was gonna say bittersweet, but it's just bitter.
It's bitter. Blue Jam wishes he was an aristocrat. So,
it's really cool when you think about it. And I didn't remember this because we were reading this week to week, but how Luffy and Ace go to deliver the packages of explosives that eventually set Grey Terminal on fire. And then I think let's just get to the part we were waiting for here, Ed.
Sabo won't lie to the police. He won't lie about it, so his father has to bribe the police. That's just that's the kind of world they live in.
Okay, Ed, enough stalling. Let's talk about the moment I've been trying to get to here. For all 11 episodes of this read through, I've been waiting for this character to show up. That's because he is my favorite. No, he's not my favorite anything. It's Stelly, guys. It's Stelly.
They should call this chapters 586. It's City of Stench. It should be called City of Stelly.
Maybe Stelly is the stench. I hate Stelly. Nice to meet
you, big brother.
I hate Stelly so much. He's so creepy.
But they basically refer to the fact that like Stelly has like behavioral issues. He possibly mentally ill. It's like, oh, he was born into an extremely high class family, but he's got problems, so we took him in.
Yeah, It's all very weird. We're talking about moons here, Ed, and I'm sure
Yep.
we're going to be talking about them a lot. Crescent moon here when Sabo escapes is very present, even reflected in the water, which is something I don't remember ever seeing. I like that image a lot. The moon thing, again, read the One Piece connection, because
Yeah.
it's in this flashback. It's around a lot. I also don't remember when we see their tree fort. They hung up the sake cups,
Yep. In a little bag.
the sakezukis,
Suckers.
the sakezukis, and it's a cool little touch. I didn't remember that. We also get a glimpse of the king of Goa, but not
Yes.
his face.
The wind is strong today, they say.
Yeah, and I mean, we all think Dragon has a wind fruit. We don't have any proof of that, but this seems to be
And Sabo is like,
an indication.
what the hell is wrong with you people? You're going to burn. I know about your plan, but everyone's just sort of like, that's what's going to happen. And no one, can't let anyone outside the high town know.
Or
Ugh.
this is just it. Even rereading it, it's just
I felt sorry for Blue Jam. I really did at the end of this. Because he was like, he's playing the pirate game. He's trying to get ahead being a pirate by being a bad guy. And he ends up partnering with people who are worse than him. And they betray him. They frame him. He's basically their patsy. It was their idea. But
I don't know if I feel bad for him, but
he's a tragic character, even if he's a villain.
Yeah. He's tragic. I don't really care. He's kind of an asshole. Look, I'm happy you shot poor Chummy Penis Face in the face.
Right in his penis.
Right in his penis face. It's I don't necessarily feel bad for him. I just find this whole situation, I mean, as Dragon said, it's a kind of a microcosm of the world, but it's just so brutal. And at the same time,
made this boy ashamed of who he is. I don't have the and Dragon doesn't. He knows he doesn't have the power to change anything right now, but he's accumulating power for the future.
I mean, this kind of almost. I feel like I've read. I mean, as a Jewish person, I grew up reading. You read a lot of tellings of the Holocaust and things related to that, and it kind of strikes me as kind of similar to those kind of thing, like the things that led up to really what Hitler's full rise to power, where you just have these kind of. There were a lot of towns that kind of just tried to look good, and by killing a lot of people that the Germans would not want to see. It just very tangentially kind of like that, but it did strike kind of that chord with me, that kind of sickening, like, oh no, this kind of stuff does happen in real life. And unfortunately with Oda, a lot of even the worst stuff you see is real, or has happened, or is based, maybe exaggerated slightly, but based in real life.
And they actually use the word Holocaust in this chapter, I think, or maybe in the next chapter, because that is the literal definition of it, is a giant fire.
Well, I didn't even know.
Yeah, that's what a Holocaust is it's a giant wildfire, basically.
I mean, what they're doing is they're just killing off, not necessarily a group of people in particular, but they're
just the human garbage.
They're killing off the poor, and they're treating them as less than human, and that kind of stuff happens. I mean, not even just the Holocaust. I mean, that happened in former Yugoslavia. It happens in Africa to this day. And so it's this, once again, Oda mimicking real life in the most depressing of ways. And I think
happened with the Native Americans too.
I mean, I could go back. Obviously, this has happened throughout human history, and I apologize if I forgot a specific genocide. Unfortunately, it has happened many a time. But it also makes Oda's kind of bigger story kind of have more impact, and that bigger story here being with Dragon and the Revolutionaries, showing just like the kind of injustices that do take place in the world. And I mean, by this point, we've seen some terrible things. I mean, the Celestial Dragons and slave stuff, that stuff happened too in the United States, and around the world, obviously, but that kind of slave trades existed,
and it's interesting when you think about it, especially from where I am sitting. Right across the river was the Alexandria slave market
in Washington D.C. Near Washington D.C. Yeah, no, it's kind of nuts when you think about it, how all this stuff is really, especially in this little story.
And we're not talking
is
about
rooted
like
in real life.
piracy and like superpowers. We're talking about like human condition.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
I think, and Oda does such a great job at bringing that down to a human level and making you care about each of the characters. And Sabo in particular here, I think, is kind of that.
I feel like maybe it gets a little didactic in later arcs, but I'm actually looking
Yeah.
forward to rereading those to see if my opinion from then was accurate.
To give you a hint at what Ed's talking about, we'll talk about that next week. But I think Goa Kingdom and Ed, this is definitely in my top stories in One Piece, and I think he does a very good job at succinctly giving us all of that.
Yeah. What is freedom? Where can I find it? That Sabo line, I love that line. But first, Blue Jam is trying to like make Luffy and Ace basically give them their treasure, and they, Ace won't stand down, so Dodon has to come to the rescue.
It's kind of not funny, but it's
and Luffy uses Haki. Uses Haki.
No, that's Ace uses Haki.
I thought that was Luffy.
No, it's Ace uses Haki, which is interesting because you don't see Ace ever use Conqueror's King Haki, but during the war he says, "Oh, Luffy, you have it too." And here you see Ace using it very early in his development. Also interesting that Blue Jam, Ace, and Luffy all see that treasure as their mode to freedom. Like that's what they could use to get to freedom. I just find that kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, I think Luffy and Ace come around to the fact that they lose it, and they're like, "Well, we can't let this stop us."
Yeah.
After that, but Dogura, I think it was Dogura and Magura take Luffy, and Dodon stays to fight with Ace, and it's like this is like the fight to the end here. And I also love this line: "Only two types survive on the battlefield: the strong and the cowardly. The brave always die first."
Yeah, I've
been thinking about that line. Yeah.
That could be true.
Dragon looks like Dragon blows a hole for the people to escape, though. I love that.
Yeah, it's still not clear what his power is, though. It's very, very heavily implied.
Yeah.
At least that it's somewhat wind related. I mean, you see the wind lines throughout this. If you haven't noticed by this point.
And there we see Kuma among the revolutionaries there.
And of course, Ivankov, because of course, how could you miss that?
That face.
And thinking back at Sabo, Dragon says, "Look, I have to change the world, because children otherwise will continue to be born in this kind of situation." So he recruits people who will fight for freedom, and hopefully get some takers. Meanwhile, we just see the destruction of the town and Luffy crying over his fallen brother, potentially Ace. And meanwhile, we go to the other potentially fallen brother.
The Saint Jelmac, the celestial dragon, has arrived in Goa, and Sabo sets sail. He can't take it anymore. He's going for freedom, and he gets shot down because he dared cross the celestial dragon's path.
A few things I want to mention here. I definitely want to mention one specific line in the Reverie segment. I'm going to write down the page so I remember it. But just very bad timing for Sabo there.
Yeah.
You probably should have researched that a little more. This is a tragic scene, and if you didn't hate the Celestial Dragons before, this is a good time. It's a good time to start hating them. You also just get Ace returning from the battlefield with Dodon on his back, which is just a crazy scene as well.
You got that strong female influence in their lives. I think that's good.
I love Dodon, yeah.
Because not everyone, a lot of people's mothers die in One Piece. But, Nami, when she was young, she had that strong Belmir in her life. And Usopp had his mother in his life as well. But not all the characters get that. Like, Zoro did not have that. Obviously, Sanji didn't have it.
So Luffy's mother figure survives. That's actually it's a rarity in this world.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know anything about Frankie's parents or Sanji's parents.
Well, at least... Well, I'm actually... I should say Frankie's mother figure, Kokoro, survives. I think that's fair to call her his mother figure.
Yeah, it really is.
Because, I mean, in One Piece, it's not blood. It's,
Right.
And we get that flashback that Ed was talking about with the Don talking to Garp about Roger. I think we talked about it already. There's not much else to say.
Yeah.
And while Luffy is battling beetles together, Dogora comes back and explains that Sabo had been shot down and starts a series of events that kind of are similar to what was happening to Luffy in the present day, where he just breaks down.
So Don gets that line in on Ace about like you can't do anything all on your own. You're too weak right now. You haven't done anything. You can't just go getting yourself killed because no one's gonna remember what you did. You have to be like your father and be important before you think about getting yourself killed.
I also want to mention that Ace has like this importance of not crying. I mean, he eventually breaks down, but I feel like we later see Shanks saying it's okay to cry. When this is all said and done, it's okay to cry, Luffy. You have to. This is part of growing up. This is part of your development. Shanks is the narrator. Is Oda incarnate. I think we know at this point. So that's like Oda saying, "It's okay, Luffy. You'll be fine." This letter, though, from Sabo to Ace, breaks my heart to this day. It's just such a good
And Ace just breaks down after that, like talking about like you have to take care of Luffy because I'm going up to sea. Yeah.
And then Ace cries, and then you get the Team America moment where Ace promises to Luffy, "I will never die."
God,
which is like
cheap. You just gotta cheapen that for me a little bit.
I'm sorry, but it's such a stupid promise. I mean,
yeah,
you can't make that.
I guess
promise.
that's the point of it. Is that it's kind of a stupid promise.
Yeah, it's a kid promise. I mean, it's expanded and helped upon by saying, "I can't leave a little crybaby little brother behind." Sabo told me to take care of you. It also really makes what comes after the flashback more important, or before the flashback, I should say. And as they weep, we go back to an island where Dragon is, and
yes, Zach, there is a gigantic D-shaped half moon, like that. That's a letter D. That is what that is.
Well, it's upside down and
it's backwards.
And
yeah, but yeah, there's little kid Zoro doing his stone presses and little Kuina practicing her sword arts, and it's but Dragon's returning to Baltigo.
Oh yeah, that is Kuina. I forgot she was there.
I almost said Tashigi.
Who knows?
Who knows?
No, it can't be. They're different.
The fact that you didn't cut that out of the podcast proves that it hasn't happened yet.
No, Kuina also died. I mean, we saw her dead body in the. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I love Dragon's ship. I mentioned this during the manga recaps when we did these back in 2010, 2011, but God, I love that ship. It's just very cool looking. So yeah, they head back to Baltigo. Meanwhile, things return to normal, and the passage of time continues to pass.
They start their own countries,
and
like Ace Country and Luffy Country.
And Makino tries to teach Ace how to thank Shanks for saving Luffy, which is a sweet moment. And you get them fighting and doing then training and killing bears and all the fun things that kids do. And then you see them grow up and time passes and we get to see pubescent Luffy.
Sure.
With all the acne. Wait a second. Damn you, Luffy. Having an easier.
I like that shirt that Ace, like teenage Ace, is wearing with like the leopard spots all over it.
So you're saying you don't like teenage Luffy shirt? What is that one again? It's in SBS describes all of them. I forget which one that is. Tachickenka. That can't be it. No, this is a really cute little scene. But Ed, I wonder what Garp would say about all this.
Yeah, I wonder what Garp would say about all this. I love the air whoop slap.
Yeah, me too.
But Dodon refuses to go to see Ace go off, and one of her underlings gives her the message. Is like, "Oh, thanks for everything." And she cries. It's so cute. Like, it's hard to call anything that Dodon does cute, but that is it.
Dodon's not a good-looking woman, but she's an awesome woman in every other degree.
Mm-hmm.
Did
you notice that after Ace left, Luffy stacked his country on top of his own country and made a double country?
I did not notice that, but thank you for telling me.
Country.
That's a good little
manifest destiny, bitches.
Ace is gone. I'm taking his country. I like Luffy actually looking at the newspaper there at what Ace is doing.
It's the last time Luffy read a newspaper.
Accurate.
Considering how many times old women scolded him in the last episode.
He should probably read them more often. He still doesn't, I don't think, but...
Luffy gives his farewell message directly to Dodon, and she cries the exact same way.
And saying, "Look, I hate bandits, but I like you guys."
Here it is, Doan Island. That's where Goa is.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That must be the first mention of that.
Yep.
Doan?
Doan? I don't know.
Maybe it's supposed to be Doan. No, probably not.
Maybe it's like Brom, like the sound of rubber.
Maybe. I don't know. I should probably look that up at some point or have done that ahead of time, but I didn't. So we see kind of what happens in between Luffy's set off when we were recapping way back in the first chapter. When was that, in May?
I think so, yeah. It was before we went to Dallas.
Oh my god, so long ago. I mean, 1997. I love how Oda does this, and you could see this kind of fitting in. And he was talking to Sabo and Ace here when he sets off, and you skip the part where he punches the what do you call it?
The Lord of the Coast?
Yeah, the Lord of the Coast, the king of the...
Something. The one that ate Shank's arm.
The one that ate Shank's arm.
The Don snuck down to the thing to see him off, too.
Yeah. I forgot about that. I probably noticed that at the time. I just forgot about that.
But back to the future now. Back to the present.
Back to the present.
Yeah, Luffy is not believing he can be king of the pirates. He's so weak. He's too weak.
I love the juxtaposition. I mean, we have the Luffy at his greatest triumph moment, him setting off to become king of the pirates. And then you have him at his lowest moment. He has never said what he says coming up here, saying, "I'm too weak to be the king of the pirates." But before we get to that, we have to see kind of the aftermath at what happened in Windmill Village.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really love this scene.
We saw before that all the territories were getting challenged by pirates like Brownbeard, so Garp puts his big sign in front of Fuchsia Village.
This is Garp's territory.
Mm-hmm.
And out comes Dodon, who smacks him on the top of the head with a bat for what he did to Ace. And saying, "Look, you put your work before your family." And this is that resolution we were kind of talking about with Garp's story here in Marineford. And Makino interrupts, saying, "Look, he's hurting the most. He was there within reach and he couldn't do anything about it." And he really couldn't, because he had Sengoku holding him back, because he's like, "I'm about to kill Sakazuki," if you recall.
Yeah.
By the way, I was trying to think...
Actually, Luffy is the one who is hurting the most.
Right. He said, first she says Garp is hurting more than anyone. Luffy is the one hurting the most. So it's kind of contradictory statements, but yes. Yeah. And Ace is... I forgot Ace trying to practice how to say hello to Shanks. "Who the heck are you? How about you bastard?" Or "Who the crap are you?"
I love the look on Luffy's face right there. He's like, "Yeah, how about that?"
That sounds like a good one. Imagine him having a weird deep voice there. But, I mean, in the context of this, very sad little panels as Makino also breaks down and cries.
Don has got Luffy's back for the rest of his life, so that's good.
Yeah. I love this scene, especially after what we just read through. I think this is just such a heartbreaking little scene with the people who care about Luffy. And then we see what happened to Ace and Whitebeard, and unfortunately they are still not alive.
Yeah, they It's interesting that there's all these like. I wonder where all these different flowers came from. Like, there's so many. Like, he draws them so intricately.
It's a very well drawn panel, and you see the entire. When I first read this, I thought they were flowers as well, but you see the Whitebeard pirates all lined up there, as Shanks walks back to his ship, and thinks what I had mentioned earlier to Luffy to stay strong, and then we head to Luffy's final moments here. Well, not final
That's
moments,
where
but-
Shanks has that line. It's all right to cry.
right.
Yeah.
And Luffy is crying, and punching, and kind of takes on Jinbei, but Jinbei throws him. What kind of throw is this? I should probably know
some kind of judo throw.
Yeah. It and kind of says, "Look," and well, I love how this is done because you have the flashback with Jinbei back in Impel Down talking to Ace and saying, "When I was looking for Blackbeard, I saw my brother, and I was relieved because I found out that he had people he cared about." Basically, I think the rest of that comes back later, and he kind of shakes that sense into Luffy. You still have something. You're being clouded by a despair.
Yeah, he feels like he's all alone, but he can't. It's painful, but you just can't focus on what you lost. You have to remember what you still have.
You have friends. You have a crew.
You can see him counting on his fingers.
This was it wasn't a sad moment. It was like, yes, this is a very important moment for Luffy, I think, and it makes you feel closer. His crew is his family. Obviously, we know the song from Skypiea, but it also it shows how important that feeling of family is. Because I mean, all of the people in Luffy's crew are these kind of outcasts. And speaking of, I think. Oh well, no. There's one more scene before we
get the thing with the flashback with Ace talking to Jinbei, and the even further flashback with Ace on the Mary back in Alabasta is like, take care of him for me. And he's an Impel Down. He's like, yep, he's got a crew that he can depend on. He'll be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I love that whole. That's a great chapter.
It's like he noticed he saw how Luffy grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really great moment for Luffy and for the series. I mean it's a great that's the beginning of some important character development for him. Meanwhile, Rayleigh just swam from probably somebody to
his ship was attacked by his ship capsized, I think, and then he swam through the calm belt.
Yeah, from the Grand Line. Very odd.
He's just that strong, man.
He does not look like he's in his 70s. I'll put it that way. I mean, nor did Whitebeard, but
we get more Amazon Lily follies. Hancock, like he says Hancock's name. Like, this is the 10th time. Is that a proposal? Hancock just doesn't understand how marriage works.
No. And Law sets off, noting, interestingly, that the D will always attract a storm, in this case, referring to Rayleigh, and probably everything that Luffy's been through up to this point.
Well, I mean, the D he's referring to is Luffy, so...
Yes. No, I know that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, attracting the storm that is Rayleigh.
I love how Jinbei trembles in Rayleigh's presence.
Well, yeah, I mean... Jinbei's strong, but Rayleigh is clearly in a league of his own there. I mean, I think, what is it, Garp said before the Whitebeard War, we can't take on two legends at the same time, implying that Rayleigh probably is close to as strong as Whitebeard, if not stronger. No, it can't be stronger, because Whitebeard's the strongest man in the world up until that point.
Hancock is bringing Luffy all this food, and Jinbei cannot have any.
And while this is going on, Rayleigh said, so you're going to go back to Sabodi, right? And he said, yeah, I want to see my crew. And Rayleigh said, I have another suggestion so you don't have to go through that whole fiasco of, getting your ass handed to you. He doesn't say it like
what's
that.
the name of the chapter? Are you sure about that?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's Are You Sure About That? Yeah.
Wow, you're right. I did not know that. I thought you were making that up just now.
No. This is also where we get to eat is to live.
Yes. So this is where we're going to do things a little differently. Since things go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, we're going to just talk about the adventures of each of the Straw Hats. I'm going to go in the order they're initially introduced here. And Ed, we'll just talk about what we think about each of their adventures that work.
Yeah.
So let's start with Usopp. What do you think of Usopp's adventures? I don't know how much we talked about this already, but yeah, go for it.
I don't know. I think the idea of Usopp being in this place is like he's learning how to be like self-sufficient. I think,
Yeah.
like he's learning how to like survive on his own. I think.
Well, with Heracles.
With Heracleson.
I'm sorry.
Master Heracleson.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like and it just broadens the world where there are these giant carnivorous plants that live in the ocean, and they like swallow like what was it, a giant sea rabbit or something like that.
Yeah.
God. And we find out
it's
about
a living island, kind of.
Yeah.
It's a man-eating island.
And like those foods are like it's bait. And so, what about Heracleson? What do we think about him? Because he like
Well, I want to see his real face.
is he a human who ate like the Hercules like the beetle fruit? That'd be cool.
That would be awesome. But I think it's just armor. I assumed he killed a giant beetle and used it as armor.
Yeah, it does look more like that.
I don't know, but I love the design. I love his personality, which is like this kind of oblivious, but he's perfect. He's the perfect Usopp foil. I think
Right.
the two of them work very well.
And of course, like Kuma would know to throw Usopp to a place where he could learn about like plants and stuff like that.
Yeah, we later find out the pop greens.
Right.
So we'll hopefully see more of that when we talk next time. What about Chopper, Ed?
Chopper's was kind of like the weakest one.
You think so?
Well, I mean, because we get later on with like the library and all
Even
the
with
plants.
Chopper mask?
That's a great gag. I love that. It's like he can't even keep up the ruse. It's like, God dang it, he throws the thing down. But like he just sort of brokers Like I also like how he he does the thing where he's like insulting the natives. And he's like, oh, I judged them too harshly.
Yeah. He thinks he's thinking, but he's talking out loud.
He thinks they're savages.
It's like, they dress like they're uncivilized beasts, but they're clearly very intelligent. It's like, we heard the first part, raccoon. I also like how we find out the real reason the birds and the people were fighting was, Chopper was able to broker a deal because he could talk to both. I thought that was a cool little detail. Yes. I also find a cool little detail that Chopper was really the only one who would be able, before he sees the newspaper, was able to kind of leave and get there.
Mm-hmm.
But
he turned around
quick. Yeah, he does turn around.
I think Nami could have made it too.
Yeah, but Chopper was on his way.
Yeah.
Chopper's the only one who was actually leaving, relaxing on a giant bird.
We get Zoro now on the Muggy Kingdom.
Ed, I know you want to talk about this.
Yeah, man, Mihawk doesn't believe the hype about what happened to Moria, it's always a little interesting thing to me. And we get these crazy battle monkeys, the Humandrills. They do the monkey see, monkey do. They would be peaceful if it was a peaceful island.
Oh, I didn't think sea monkey. Monkey see, monkey do. That is kind of exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm. And they've taken on the attributes of this battle ravaged kingdom, and of course that's the kind of place where Mihawk would settle down. And I just like the dynamics of the Perona Mihawk Zoro relationship. They're just kind of like they're made.
It's not willingly, but
yeah, they order her around.
I also just love the relationship. I mean, we see in the second part of the Zoro story between him and Mihawk when he defeats all of the Humandrills, who I love the designs and everything of. I want to say,
and Mihawk is trying to send him away because you're too weak, and you couldn't even beat the monkeys, and you're bowing before me. And
I did beat all the monkeys though.
Damn! It's like, wow, you there's something more important to you than your pride. I love that line from Mihawk.
Yeah,
and that makes him laugh. It's like, you're gonna come to me and request that I train you so that you can kill me. He's like, okay, I can respect that. That's what I love about these swordsman characters. They're like the personification of like.
I can't wait to see more about like what happens during the. We don't see very much about what happens during the eventual time skip, but I'm curious as to what kind of. I want to see more of the interactions between these two. But Ed, hey.
I'll take this one because I need you to talk about the next one.
Oh, okay, go.
Yeah, so Nami is on Witheria, and there's an old man named Harida's son. And basically, this is the place where they keep records of all the weather. They travel around, they study the weather, they make ropes that unleash winds. People come to them for to beg for good weather. And
it is an artificial. I think we were like.
There's a big bubble. Yeah, they ride.
It's definitely artificial. Yeah.
But they have the the book on the lightning rain island that we see later on.
Yeah, I did not remember that.
Those things come in like successive chapters. So.
No, I think the lightning island comes after we actually see the lightning island. I think that's at the beginning of 61 that we hear about it. It's when Haridas is like.
But what I'm saying is that we see the lightning island before we see Haridas talking about it. It's like they're like in successive chapters.
Right. They are. It's one after the other. I like Nami's way of tricking them by crying and saying she has to leave, and then she's actually crying crocodile tears as Haridas calls them.
Like, you can call me Miss Nami and give me a place and give me a house.
It's great. My favorite.
Yes, you have to talk about this one.
Why me? Forsooth?
Because of where they are, Zach.
Oh, God, good point. This is definitely I don't even know why I said maybe. Definitely my favorite of these vignettes, because I've been using that word today a lot, is the Frankie one. And they're in Mechanical Island, in Baltimore. I'm sorry, Baltimore. It's Baltimore, let's be honest.
Baltimore, but it's on the, what's the island called? Mechanical Island?
Mechanical Island, which is where, I don't remember the guy.
Dr. Tsukimi?
Tsukimi, I think it is.
Yeah.
From the Eneru cover story. And please read the One Piece Connection for more details as to that. But it's very... I think this is probably, considering how ridiculous it is, very important stuff.
Vegapunk built a system for heating the island as a child using animal labor.
I mean, we hear a lot about Vegapunk here. And we still, to this day, do not know what he looks like, don't really know anything about him.
And Frankie can't do anything. He can do anything he wants, just don't press the button. Like, oh, hey, a pirate symbol.
The anime, I think it does its best when it's trying to make implied filler for the Frankie stories. They add a whole thing about him drinking tea again, and whatever. I don't care.
Dancing for a long time.
Lots of dancing, but it's all great. It's all amazing, and if you're gonna watch any anime episodes, those are pretty fantastic.
Frankie blows his face off, and by blowing up the first laboratory, he finds the entrance to the hidden second laboratory, where he ends up setting himself on fire.
Okay, so wait. One is, this event will be remembered whenever people speak of Futureland as the nightmare of Baltimore, and then they do the same gag. This event will be remembered whenever they see the flaming,
the burning beast of
Baltimore.
That may have been like an old translation that we remembered, but
no,
I think that sounds.
I think that's.
It's a little different.
Right.
Yeah, and they had the Frankie in the sky with the thumbs up. It's like, oh, and the first one is like, if I press that button, would it be my fault?
Yes.
Yes, it would.
Yes, it would. And then I'm like, wait, that's not where that chapter ends, like for the first one, because you have the Brook one too. So let's talk a little bit about Brook, Ed.
Yeah, Brook is in a land where there are devil worshippers, and they're being oppressed by the Long Arm tribe. And Brook is he's requesting panties.
Well, okay, so first Brook caught the Long Arm tribe people, but then he's like, let's let them go, I'm a nice guy. But then he gets captured. He was like trying to haunt them, but they don't believe him, rightfully so. And then he gets put as an exhibit, and I didn't realize how much they're hinting to things to come, but all I'll say is Bone to be Wild premiere show. I mean,
yep.
It's the Brook one's a little, quick and stupid, but it's fun. It's Brook. I mean, of course it's fun. I also like that when he's like prepping for Luffy, he's like, oh, I'll get down to 40 degrees, just like you want me to. It's like, why are you practicing that? That is the least important of things.
Right. Here's another one you have to talk about, Zach.
Which one?
Robin.
Oh, Robin. Oh, God. Okay.
I'll talk about Sanji. You can talk
Stop,
about
Robin time.
Yes.
Not Valina time.
Wrong show, Zach.
There's a lot of things, and I am going to have to save a lot of this for the Reverie, so I apologize. But this is Robin's first kind of interaction with the revolutionaries, and we find out that if Robin had just interacted with the revolutionaries, she would have probably had a much safer and calmer life than she had up until this point. So she's riding on the rhinoceros carriage when she gets the newspaper, which is delivered by a crow.
Right.
And
we find out the Celestial Dragons had ordered the bridge built, but its purpose is actually unimportant.
It's unimportant.
Yeah, which is interesting that the revolutionary guy says that.
Yeah, I really am curious as to what the purpose is. I don't believe him. I want to know what it was built
for. And when did they start building it? 300 years ago?
No, I think it was... Oh, yeah, you're right. No, the construction site's from 300 years ago.
Right.
The bridge, I think, was started 800 years ago.
Probably right after the Void
Century, yeah. Okay, but and then later on, this is why I want to talk about Volume 61. I don't have the page, but I tweeted the images for this. You see the revolutionary ship, which has wings on it.
Right.
Which is very interesting. Does this, and again, One Piece connection, please read the article. I'm sorry to pimp it so much, but it's related to a lot of the things I'm bringing up. And, a lot of what, Ed, you and I have discussed as well, are the revolutionaries related to the angel races, who were probably the enemy of the world government. It kind of like... Is that the connection there? That tiny little detail Oda threw there. Whenever I see wings in One Piece, it perks my ears up a little bit.
Who knows, man? Who knows?
So let's talk about Sanji, Ed. Why don't you take care of this?
Yeah, Eva's back on Peachy Island, Kamabaka Queendom. And they're she's showing him the wanted posters, and he gets angry at Zoro's, and he's making googly eyes at Nami, and like, and he makes the regular face for Sniper King. He just won't admit it. He won't admit that this is his wanted poster.
Yes, it's my name, but it's not me.
Yeah, you won't. I won't let you have it.
Ivankov and Sanji together, I love it actually.
I'm a manly man who loves the ladies. He actually says this.
Yeah, I mean, because Sanji is just like, he's almost overcompensating his machismo.
It doesn't get better for Sanji for a while.
No, but I kind of like the combo of these two because, I mean, Ivankov is strong as hell.
Yeah.
But
the later on part is that Sanji agrees to stay, and he's challenging all the Okama for their recipes, the food, like the power of food, basically. That's what the Kamabaka Queendom has.
Now, I love the transition from the first Sanji goes straight into dragons, which makes sense because Ivankov is talking to dragon.
Right.
And they talk a little bit about Luffy's relationship to him and Garp. We see a new transponder snail.
Yeah, I like that the revolutionaries are like, my subordinates are just relieved to know that I'm like an actual human being and basically not a robot,
I'm not convinced yet. He does not act like Luffy at all. I like Dragon for the little we've seen him, but I want to reserve judgment until we really see Dragon, which has not happened yet and probably won't happen anytime soon. And he says he's also going to convene executives from around the world to figure out what's going on now that Whitebeard has destabilized everything by dying. And he also, and Ivankov asks about Kuma, but we don't get the answer to that. We instead go and see the remaining member of the Straw Hats and what's happening to him or her. Him? I think it's a him. And that is the Sunny, who is being protected by Duval, Handsome, and Shaki and Hachi and the rest of them.
But then Kuma shows up.
Yeah, and whose side is he on? We'll find out.
Whose side is he on? Yeah, we'll see. But we see that...
now we go around the world.
Yeah, basically. Vivi is the first one, and she's confused by what she sees in the newspaper.
Is it a fashion statement?
Yeah.
We also find out pirates are running amok a little bit in Alabasta, which makes sense. And speaking of Alabaster, we see Crocodile and Mr. One deciding to go to the New World again.
They're like BFFs. They're each other's only friend.
No, they're not BFFs. They're just their only. Yeah, you're right. They don't have any other friends. That's it. We're kind of similar. Let's just hang out. Then we see Buggy and his crew reunite with his new crew.
Richie is always just thinking of food. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Candies and
I forgot about that gag.
What's the
Okay, so we got onigiri, candy, and cake.
Right.
Yeah. Good for Richie.
But Buggy has a message.
Also, just to note about Richie, remember the first time we saw him in Volume 3 a couple months ago, and he was this ferocious, realistic-looking lion? It has not lasted.
No. He looks more like Scar than Mufasa.
So yeah, Buggy gets a message, and Mr. 3 reads it before he looks at it. It's from
different bat.
Yeah, and we've seen those carrier bats. They're government bats. I mean, he says that.
It's pretty shocking.
Anyway, let's get a little more shocking as we see the 5 Elder Stars, which we don't see often, and they have a lot to say here.
Yeah. Although you say that they never leave this room, and it says "Room of the 5 Elders."
Am I right or am I right?
Yeah.
A lot of people mention, including Brian, who's been on a lot, that the Gandhi one has the Katetsu, the original Katetsu.
That is Brian's theory. I mean,
It's shaped the same. It's shaped the same.
It's got the same cross, yeah.
Yeah. Do you happen to agree? Sorry, I cut you off.
I do. I mean, but there's no confirmation on that.
No, yeah. It also has nothing to do with what's going on. They kind of just go through the whole situation and how everything's destabilized. And that Blackbeard took out one of the supernovas already, which we see in a second. And that who could be one of the 4 emperors. And also, what's going on?
It's pretty clearly going to be Blackbeard. That's going to be one of the 4 emperors.
And what's going on with the letter D with Portgas and Luffy? It's becoming much too well known in recent years. Interesting. And it's with what we saw with Gold Roger and his flashback about how the world government is calling him Gold Roger instead of Gold D Roger. It seems like the government covers up D's.
The government covers up everything.
Good point. Speaking of things that the government has never shown us, Kong.
This character was such a letdown.
No, I'd say that he's a letdown. We don't know what the hell he did. He's just there.
Yeah,
maybe we'll see him at the final war, because if you think about it, he never even showed up in this war. He's like, maybe it's too small stakes for him. So he just sent Sengoku instead. I mean, even, no matter who the new admiral may be, Kong is kind of the liaison between. He's the head guy, really. In the United States, he'd be president if he were elected, but he's the commander-in-chief. I'm curious about him. We haven't really seen anything about him. He also has a really cool room.
But he's basically talking to Sengoku about his retirement plans. Like, he can't take this anymore.
Well, Garp also retired, so...
But he wants them to stay on and train the next generation of
which
pirates.
Garp is also doing.
Yeah.
So the two of them could do that.
He recommends Aokichi for the next fleet admiral.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Aokichi's talking to Smoker, who is asking to transfer to G5 in the New World.
And this is actually where you get the first hint of what Luffy did. The 16 rings, he says.
Yeah. This incident that Luffy called. And Kobe, meanwhile, has Haki. Observation Montraki, as we will call it.
Helmeppo is jealous.
Helmeppo is jealous. And then we, of course, get Exposition Brand New explaining to us everything that's going on.
He does that a lot.
But that's Brand New's... I like that is Brand New's job. That's what he does. He explains shit. And he goes bald.
But he explains, like, how Rayleigh and Luffy broke into Marineford when, like, they were out, like... Jinbei did, right. Jinbei and Luffy broke...
Rayleigh, and Luffy. Three of them.
Yeah, they broke in while Marineford was being rebuilt, and there weren't hardly any soldiers there because the soldiers were out chasing other pirates, and rang this bell 16 times.
And laid flowers, and the press picked it up. So that picture with something on his arm, all through the newspapers. Did you have any idea what it? I don't think we guessed it. We noticed that was there, and I don't know. I can't remember if we read it right away.
I don't think we did. I don't think
or
we
that
did.
we knew it right away, the 3D2Y,
Yeah.
or what that stood for. I don't remember. Guys, listen to the podcast from back then. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
but it's a direct challenge to the Navy's power.
And let's go around the world again and see.
Let's see what the supernovas are doing. Yeah. Where the
Kid
fuck?
and Killer.
Where the fuck are they?
In the New World.
God.
What are those things? What do those look like?
They look like stalagmites or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't even know. They're on Hard Rock Island.
Yeah. But the killer, for some reason, explains what the ox bell is. Like, you're ringing 8 times to give thanks for the past year and 8 more to pray for the coming year. So Luffy is announcing his own era. But
considering his name's Killer, he talks a lot about things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting and very out of character for Luffy, as it's mentioned later on.
Kid has a respect for Luffy.
Kid also does not have any respect for the New World because he's apparently kicking some ass, which is interesting. But not so for Capone Gang Beige,
who is sucked into a planet
or something. Oh God, I wish I want some explanation here. Still, no. Most of these we do not have explanation for to this day. Meanwhile, Luffy is being poked and prodded at, and we get a little bit more of an explanation as to what is going on. But first, more supernovas. Basil Hawkins is...
The shadow of death is on Brownbeard now. Loser.
He doesn't say that part. Anyway, and then we have Rouge, I'm sorry. And the Lightning Island. I've mentioned this in the Reverie segment, but it is the only time we see him frowning.
Would you like an umbrella?
And Brian's theory is that is because of memories of Eneru here, which I think makes a lot of sense since he is a Bilkin. Let's go into volume 61. We'll talk about the cover next week, because there's a lot I do want to talk about with that. But first, let's talk about the actual chapter and what Law is doing.
Yeah.
And he's not going anywhere.
Yep, he's taking it easy. All these other idiots are going to rush in, but I'm not going to be that guy. Speaking
of idiots rushing in, actually, no. That's Scratchman and Pooh we could talk about if you want to talk about idiots rushing in.
he runs in midair. He's being chased by boars. That's all that's happening.
That's all that's happening. Diaz Drake, meanwhile, is on one of Kaido's favorite islands.
So if I kill you, Kaido's going to come after me? All right. Easy enough.
Yeah, interesting. We'll go back to that in the Reverie.
Introduce all the Blackbeard pirates again.
We already know these guys. I just introduced them. And for God's sake, Blackbeard, learn to eat pizza. What are you, Donald Trump here? You're not orange enough. No.
But they have captured Bonnie, and they're trying to trade her to the Navy for a battleship, because San Juan Wolf is just complaining.
Because he has to carry them all? Is that what's happening?
No, his feet are burning. I mean, he also wrecked the raft, I think.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting. Bonnie's connection to the Marines and Akainu specifically seems... It's just confusing. But, Akainu, he takes Bonnie and scares off the Blackbeards. And, he's that powerful. And,
well... Blackbeard's powerful, but I guess Akainu here Sakazuki is much more powerful.
He's not ready for that yet, he says.
And then in probably one of the more interesting scenes, we have Doflamingo and Mystery Guy in Marijoa in a world government office.
Yeah. Wearing a bowler hat.
Some guy wearing a bowler hat. Talking about Gecko Moria escaping, apparently. Apparently his... shadow power allowed him to sneak out of there. And he's like, can't you do your job right? It's like, look, you're not my boss. I could just quit anytime I want.
You're not my real dad.
Yeah. And that's when we kind of get the final push here. And we've talked a lot about it. And I like how, one thing I didn't talk about all these vignettes are how they're interspersed with the first meeting Luffy has.
Yes.
With them, or not the first meeting, but when they say to join the crew and fight together, the opening 14. does such a great job with it. And God, I love that opening. We
I'm gonna
talked
go
about
watch.
that.
I'm gonna go watch that when we're done.
Yeah, probably me too.
But I just want to mention, I was just flipping through this. I love that gorilla Navy captain in Frankie's thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
I love that design on him.
And then we get the final little push here in the story, and that is Luffy's adventure in Ruskina.
And actually, that's kind of that's not really accurate because it's all just Rayleigh describing hockey for eight pages.
Well, it's going to be his adventure for the next 2 years. We just don't really see much of it. And I mean, I'm not going to explain hockey to you guys. You could read it and get a very good explanation. It's very necessary, and the way it's done, I like a lot.
So
I love this. I love this ending.
yeah, and all the crew is going to meet Luffy at Sabaody, but Jinbei is going back down to Fishman Island, and that's where he wants to meet him in 2 years.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It makes sense. He's a fishman, and Fishman Island seems to be the place to find fishmen.
Luffy takes off his straw hat because he's not the pirate straw hat Luffy anymore for these 2 years.
He's taking a break. It's not that he's not that anymore. He's taking the straw hat Luffy's taking a break for 2 years, and
That's where we leave it off.
That's the first half of One Piece.
It only took us 3 months.
Yeah, it only took us
2.5 months. Yeah.
Yeah, how long does it take you to read One Piece? What did you think of this section first? I guess the part after Marineford through.
It's insane that they can take away all those characters that we love and everything that you think makes One Piece, but you find out that One Piece is actually something else. One Piece is about this whole world, and there's all these characters out there who are living their lives and having adventures, and they all participated in this massive world event. And, the Straw Hats weren't necessarily important to it. It wasn't about them. I mean, it was about Luffy a little bit, but it was mostly about Whitebeard and Ace, and Luffy was a little tangential to the story. He isn't the hero of this. He isn't even the main character of this arc. And it's, it's interesting to see that we changed what One Piece, the story is, and changed how the story is told, take away all these characters that we know, and put all these characters who we thought were in the background and some that we didn't even know, they come in, and what happens, because it's built around this core of what we know, and it still manages to have that massive emotional impact, like the first time a character dies in One Piece.
This saga really just puts everything into a new perspective. What we talked about this week and what we talked about last week. It puts Luffy into a new perspective. It gives him much needed, tragedy to provide development. Luffy's always going to be Luffy. I think that's clear. But it puts him through a struggle and a trial that tests his limit and frankly is something he just couldn't live up to. And that's why he has to take these 2 years off. And not really off, he's training vigorously for the next 2 years. I'm really excited to talk about what's next. But before we do you want to go into the Reverie segment?
All right.
There's a lot to talk about in that. Let's just see how much there is.
Okay.
This is the Reverie segment. Ed and I are still the only people here. Hey, Ed.
Hey, Zach.
So Marineford, first off, this section has spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled, please skip to the end. Now, with that out of the way, Marineford is kind of an arc that clearly is pivotal to everything that happens afterward.
Yeah.
And we could talk for days, I think, about, how every little thing there impacts it. Is there anything in particular that sticks out to you as interesting foreshadowing that he did for future events? Obviously the distant future has been foreshadowed.
Doflamingo was highlighted so much during the war that it kind of became obvious. I don't know if it was maybe not obvious, but it was hinted that he would basically be one of the first obstacles for Luffy in the New World. I think there was really a sense that, man, they're putting a lot of focus on this guy during this. We've hardly seen him before this. Putting that in there, giving us his ideology of basically the strong make the rules.
I thought the Paramount War was very interesting because, especially now that we've been in the New World since 2011, and it's kind of this intersection of the past, the present, and the future, which is kind of what I was talking about in the One Piece connection, but this is more actually like in the actual story. So we see the past, we see old enemies like Crocodile, Gecko Moria, others that I can't remember for some reason, but those two, I mean, are good examples. We see present people. We see people like Jinbei, Hancock, which recent past, if anything. I mean, we also saw people like Mihawk and Smoker from the past. But we also see people who will come up in the future and be important in the future. We see Akainu for the first time here. Doflamingo plays a very important role here, as you mentioned. And probably a lot of people, I mean, we get lots and lots of mentions of Kaido. And he's just been, as we're recording this, he was just introduced last week in the manga for the first time, visually at least. So it's really cool to see, you know, how they've been laying things for that character this early on in the story. I mean, with Drake, which we could talk about that now as well, but just to see all the Kaido stuff that had been laid forth, and yet not knowing really anything about him.
And like the fact that like Drake ends up being this guy. He has this really interesting backstory of what his father did, and then what happened with him in Law, which draws that encounter they had on Sabaody in the last episode, draws that into sharp relief. And
also just seeing, I mean, Law and Luffy's alliance later on is kind of
foreshadowed.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, Law saves his life. He sees everything Luffy went through. He kind of was there for Luffy's crazy reactions as to everything, and it's interesting for two reasons. First, we know Law's tragic backstory, so he either was sympathizing or saying, oh, come on, I could deal with that any day of the week. I went through way worse.
Maybe Law knows more about the Will of D than we're giving him credit for.
I think that's also
the D always brings a storm, and
well, that's what Corazon said, right? I think almost line for line. It's interesting. It's very interesting. There were a couple other things, but is there anything else with the war that you want to talk about? I think more in general, it provides a lot of foreshadowing.
Well, there's the bit about like Sengoku and Garp becoming like inspectors now. It's the whole changing of the guard where, you know, Sengoku recommends Aokiji, but they have this battle on Punk Hazard, and Akainu is the one who ends up becoming, you know, the fleet admiral. So we're seeing where the justice is going in this world from here, and how, you know, Akainu was this guy who was crazed. He was going after, you wanted to take all the pirates' heads, him and Doberman.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that's who they're putting in charge. Later on, very soon we find that out. Doflamingo's role in all this is also interesting. We see for the first time the kind of sway he has in the government, and it, you know, in retrospect, we probably that should have been a theory, his potential Celestial Dragon roots. I want to mention two things in particular with the flashback. On page 64 of volume 60, I don't know if you have it in front of you.
No.
Sabo says, Ace in his letter, or no, not in his letter, to himself. Ace, Luffy, I hope you two are safe. I want to see you so bad. I feel like a bird in a cage here. And the funny thing is, so I think 2 weeks ago was Sabo's adventure, which I know, Ed, you were just dying to say, Sabo's alive, which we were also yelling, to be honest, when we originally did the manga recaps for these. And he said, I think they have a thought bubble, and he's like, it's just like I'm in a bird cage. And believe it or not, Oda wrote that here. And I doubt he had that in mind. Highly, highly, highly doubt he had that in mind. But it's interesting. It's interesting to note. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else. The flashback provides some very interesting stuff in general, I think, to what may happen in the future, definitely with Dragon. I mean, we talked about this. I kind of wanted, I accidentally spoiled, but I cut it out. And I was talking about how Luffy's father figures were in the cover, but it's really Luffy and Sabo's father figures in the cover, because Dragon is Sabo's father figure, even though he's Luffy's father.
Right.
And Rayleigh is Luffy's father figure, right? This is very complicated to say. And I guess Yeah, I mean, Ace and Dodon also. I mean, Dodon was all of their mother figures, so it's fine. And I don't know. Do you feel any differently reading through this about Sabo's, eventual return?
I don't know if I would do it any other way though.
Yeah. I mean, we all thought he was alive.
We always shouted down anyone who said otherwise.
We were pretty obstinate about that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it changes anything for me. He comes in right at the point where you think he would.
Yeah. I think I was a little surprised as to when he came in. I don't think it's bad. It's weird in retrospect, kind of just knowing for certain Sabo coming back and what he's been up to. I still don't know how much I love the amnesia thing. I still feel like that takes a little bit of it away from me.
I don't know. The way they fixed that, it worked for me. Or the translation was lost. It was lost in translation.
Okay.
With, the Sakazuki.
Oh, I don't mind how he got it back. That was Steve. Steve cared about how he got it. He thought that was I just thought that in general, it wasn't the cliche of it either. It was just, I think it kind of took a little bit of the impact from this flashback away. When he's talking to Dragon, that whole scene, it's like, he loses that all kind of, it's like I guess he doesn't lose the drive, but it feels like a lot of what he worked for kind of is gone if you don't have the memory of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It didn't ruin anything else, but it kind of ruined how I felt about the.
You want to talk about Blackbeard?
What do you want to talk about Blackbeard?
The fact that he's working with Aokiji these days. It's interesting what happens to Aokiji now that he's been, seemingly cast out from the Marines. There's people who still think that he's on an undercover mission with, spying on Blackbeard. But
I think there's a lot in that regard to talk about next week.
Yeah.
When we kind of hear more about what happened with Aokiji. I don't know. And we talked about this on the manga recap. I'm a little suspicious it's as clear cut as, Aokiji's just working with Blackbeard now. I think it's a little less clear cut than that.
Yeah.
We'll find out. Maybe Blackbeard's not as bad a guy as we think. I doubt it, but
no, he's like the opposite of Luffy. They declared themselves like they have competing eras going on here.
That's true. But might be mutual enemy too of the world government. I mean, that's also possible. We'll see.
Yep.
I don't really think he's a good guy, but there's a possibility. No, there isn't really.
There is a possibility because, Rayleigh says you might come to a different conclusion.
Well,
what does Teach after? We don't know.
Yeah, we don't really know. That's the thing. With a lot of these people, we know what Akainu's after. Justice.
Yeah. Justice.
I think that's everything. I think we touched on most of the things I wanted to go through. There's just this stuff is really dense, and I apologize if we were kind of all over the place this episode and for this segment, but there's just so much.
Don't apologize. The only other way to do it would have taken 8 hours.
And I think this itself probably took almost 3, so
yeah.
Why don't we round this off?
Okay.
That's it for the 11th episode of the One Piece read-through, covering a lot of Volume 56 through a lot of Volume 61.
Not really. It was like 2 chapters in 56 and 3 in 61. So
okay, that's true. So next week we're gonna take 2 years off. Actually, we'll come back.
Really?
We're gonna come back in 27. No, that would be an interesting way to do this, though. If we just read through the whole thing in one shot and then took 2 years and then read the rest. No. We're gonna be back next week to talk about the remainder of the time skip stuff. I don't know what you want to call it. The return to the archipelago that must not be named. It'll be the rest of Volume 61 through 66. A bunch of 66, not the whole 66. So we're gonna do the return and Fishman Island. We're going to have Brian Newton on with us next week. This is one I've actually really been looking forward to rereading. I have not looked or touched this material since it aired in 2011 and 12, or was published in 2011 and 12. I don't know about you, Ed.
It's going to be put in a whole new perspective for me. I haven't gone back to this material since I read through it, or I watched it in the anime, which made it worse, I think.
Yeah, the anime somehow makes that arc.
I remember not enjoying this very much when I was reading it on a weekly basis, but I think the anime also soured me a little bit.
Well, let me put it this way. I think my opinions of arcs have changed because I've read through it, marathon through it like this. So it's possible. I'm going in with a very open mind with Fishman Island. This is one of Brian's favorite, I think. So I'm super excited to hear what he has to say. And don't be discouraged just because you don't like it. I think that'll make it actually a much more interesting discussion. So please tune in. Again, that's volume 61, the remainder of it through 66. That's going to be on August 13th. And then we're going to get into some much more recent stuff after that. We're almost done here, if you could believe it.
Wow.
We're gonna try, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we've had people ask to do Dressrosa in one shot, but the way we might do it is we might not to hear how the sausage is made too much, but we might record it as kind of one thing, but split it up into two, which might be necessary. I don't think we're gonna recap it kind of like how we've been doing, just because it's so recent. We might kind of just the alternative would be just kind of giving our thoughts about it and certain scenes that stuck out. Because we kind of just did that. We've been talking about Dressrosa for, I'm going to say, 2.5 years now, pretty much straight. So I don't know what we're going to quite do with that yet, but I'll let you guys know as soon as I figure that part out. So again, next week, Fishman Island with Brian Newton. Tune in. Ed, how could the good people out there contact us?
Well, Zach, you're Zach_Logan on Twitter. I'm Edward E. Festizio. The podcast is at onepiecepodcast.com. Twitter.com, YouTube.com, and Facebook.com/OnePiecePodcast. OnePiecePodcast.tumblr.com for news updates and funny pictures. OnePiecePodcast@gmail.com is our email address. OnePiecePodcast, that's one word, is our Skype name. Subscribe on Stitcher, subscribe on SoundCloud, or subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, or call us on our phone number. Zach?
Ed, that phone number is 347-497-MAJI.
Maji.
That phone number again is 347-497-6254. Call anytime.
Anytime.
Huge thanks to Miles Thomas from Crunchyroll. Please follow him on Twitter. We'll put the link in the description.
Isn't it Miles Express 999?
Thank you for having that at the top of your head. Yes.
No, I like the handle, so I remember it.
It is great. I thought it was. I just didn't want to say it because I wasn't 100% sure. Please check out the Crunchycast and all the work he does. Also, since we had a member from Crunchyroll on, we have our special promotion that's still open. Go to crunchyroll.com/OnePiecePodcast and get it 30 days free at Crunchyroll. You could do that today. Sign up. It's a great service, and it's all of One Piece in HD. That's really all you need to say there. As soon as it comes out in Japan, plus the entire backlog of the 700 plus episodes that are out now. So dive into that. We're almost done here, Ed.
Yep.
I can't believe it. We're getting close to the end. Thank you all for staying with us for these super long episodes. I'm hoping they get a little shorter now that we're getting to some less complicated material. I don't know quite how to put that. So for the One Piece Podcast, everyone, my name is Zach.
And my name is Ed.
We'll see you next time, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
The world.